In the 8-round Radenso Sports Car Challenge, we meet the halfway point. Round 1 at COTA saw the classes run together, where DJ Alessandrini, Kyle Herbst, Eric Mickey, and Ken Hausiel found class victories. With a trip across the northern border to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Paul Darling swept both races in GS, keeping Hausiel from a second victory on the season. In TCR, Eric Mickey and Darwin Mites brought home victories for Bombshell Motorsports, as the rest of the field piled up in Turn 2. At Watkins Glen, Johnson and Hausiel snagged wins in GS, while Eric Mickey continued his winning ways in Race 1 for TCR, before being collected in a Race 2 collision. Andrew Pilata snuck through for a victory after the leaders tangled on the final lap. In round 4, we head to yet another American road racing classic, Road Atlanta. In the hills of Braselton, Georgia, there's a 2.4-mile stretch of pavement between the red clay. They call it Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and it's the site of round 4 of the 2020 Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Welcome to Sim TV. My name's Kyle Heyer, joined by Tom O'Gorman for the 4th round of the championship this season, with 2 races in Grand Sport and 2 in TCR. Tom, welcome back to the booth here again for the 4th round after our first off week of the season. The last time we were out at Watkins Glen, it was a pretty wild night, especially in TCR. A lot of penalties coming out of that week, but this time we head to another very familiar North American road course, one that you are very fond of, much like you were both Mossport and Watkins Glen. This is another great racetrack. Looking forward to 4 amazing races tonight.
For sure, Road Atlanta is incredible, and I'll tell you, I think if the world was going the way the world was going when this season was planned, it would have been a blink of an eye before we had that off week. But now there's so much sim racing going on Sim TV, on so many platforms. A lot of these drivers have been on a daily basis, both practicing for this league, racing another series, and it's felt like forever. So I'm thrilled to be back for the Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Like you said, at one of my absolute favorite tracks, Road Atlanta. And this one's going to present a pretty unique challenge in a multitude of ways.
Let's take a look at the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta circuit here, Tom, because it's got 12 corners, but all of them very unique. Another very fast racetrack, just like the last couple of tracks we visited. Walk me through a lap of this racetrack.
Yeah, as I said, it's a different track than a lot of tracks out there, and you start off with a very short front straight that's one of the lowest elevation points on the circuit into an incredibly fast sweeping uphill right-hander that actually is an increasing radius corner, but you often don't think of it that way. And then you enter this whole series of S's. Turn 2 is basically a non-factor except for getting into turn 3, jumping a huge curb at turn 3 and getting yourself into the S's at turn 4. Now there's a whole bunch of wiggles down there that we just call the S's. They're not numbered, and that gets you into turn 5. That's all pretty much single file, hanging on for dear life in these cars. And then turn 5, a really unique challenge with the Porsche Cayman GT4, as it is incredibly bumpy and these cars don't like that. Then down into turn number 6 and 7. Turn 6, a potential passing opportunity really, but 7, getting onto the back straight is key here. Getting into the back straight, getting with the draft, all the way down those turns 8, 9, not really a corner. Then turns 10, A and B. That's where we're going to see a lot of the passing here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And then the run back down the daunting turn 12 onto the front straight to start another lap.
It's a beautiful racetrack down here, and one that I've had the pleasure of actually visiting the real world last year with the Grid Life Touring Cup. So we'll head down to the track here in just a moment and bring you qualifying for the first race of the night. The Grand Sport category is first up, as they were the past couple weeks. Now that we've got the split strategy here, the split format, that's cleaned things up in some ways and made it messier in others. The TCR category in particular, Tom, has really struggled on race starts, but we have a new rule instituted, kind of an IMSA-based rule about staying in line until you get past the start-finish line. Drivers may no longer deviate from their line as they come to the green flag. They have to remain in the tire tracks of the lead car. Hopefully should clean up the starts just a little bit.
IMSA calls it no column passing, and if you think about each row 1, row 2, row 3, there's also the left and right column, and it basically means you cannot pass cars within your column. The easier way to think about it is you must stay in the tire tracks of the driver in front of you until you cross start finish line. So like you said, we've had incidents, pretty severe incidents really, in both series, both classes, especially TCR, for whatever reason. I think the 2-week off break has given everybody a chance to kind of reset, and the series directors also came down with some pretty heavy penalties for a number of drivers. One driver, Kyle Herbst, even getting around suspension this week. So the tone has really been set for these guys, what standard is expected. And I think, I certainly hope that we'll see that play out.
So qualifying is underway right now, and we've got just shy of 30 cars here tonight for the first Grand Sport race of the evening. And one driver that's making a return to the series, DJ Alessandrini, the number 91 here, Tomo. He was incredibly fast in practice. He's always hard to beat, and he's got the Hawk performance, the Hawk colors on this car tonight, working with them now as he heads down into turn 10A and 10B. And I expect he'll be challenging for the win, at least in one of these 2 races tonight.
Yeah, the only time we've seen him this season is at the Circuit of the Americas, and he had a disastrous race 1, ended up inheriting a pretty good start for race 2 and won commandingly. But it's also cool to see that beautiful matte and gloss Hawk livery. He's actually planning on working with those guys in real life to develop some race pads, or at least attempt those on his real race car, Honda Civic. So I think it's cool to see that kind of tying together with esports and real racing with the Hawk colors on that car.
So, as we continue to watch DJ make his way around the racetrack, we'll check a bit deeper in the field. Christopher Lapras in the 183 is back on course. Currently 7th on track. Nicholas Johnson, though, has gotten a victory at Watkins Glen. So, there's a lot of similarities between Watkins Glen and Road Atlanta, Tom. Very fast racetracks, both of them, and also a lot of sweeping corners. So I can see Johnson getting another race win here tonight.
They're very similar in speed, but really Road Atlanta has a character all to itself between the bumps, the way the speed is made, and the elevation. As you can see, there's the climb into turn 1, and it's a super unique corner. There's the banking, and it's not even banking really, it's just elevation catches you, shoots you up towards turn 3. There's that big hop over the curb at turn 3. You see these Caymans really don't like bumps. Now the run down through the S's, and this is basically just hanging on for dear life. And now watch all this bumpiness through turn 5. It's going to miss the inside curves a little bit, and this outside curve is bumping up and down, and it doesn't look super dramatic when you're inside the car necessarily riding along, but when you're driving, the car is just an absolute handful. And another thing everybody has been talking about is the temperatures as well, which I'm sure we'll get to, but the previous rounds have certainly been Nicholas Johnston, Ken Hauseal, and Paul Darling, kind of my top 3 guys. I think those guys have been really strong for a couple of rounds straight. It'll be interesting to see DJ Alessandrini back this week. And another guy that I think has found a stride this week is Dan Nyman, who's currently your pole sitter in the 48 car. We haven't seen him have super big success yet at any particular round, but he's always been in the hunt, and now this may be showing to start. It's a strong start, I should say, to his week.
So as we wait for qualifying to conclude, there's a few drivers left on track. DJ Alessandrini goes down to 5th spot. And Paul Darling out on track in the 155. He swept both races at Mossport. Finian DeCuna back in the field this week. Wasn't sure if he was going to even race tonight, but here he is down in 21st place, struggling with the tire slipping and sliding. You mentioned the temperature. Let's have a look at the weather here today, Tom. 81 ambient, track surface 104. That might just continue to climb with the sun baking in the hot Georgia sun here this afternoon.
Oof. That's all I've got to say. 104 track temp at Road Atlanta. This place is super tricky in the best of conditions, and then you put these drivers in these really super hot conditions. The air temp isn't too bad, but the track surface is going to be super slippery. And we've talked about it on every single round of the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, how these cars take a long time to come up to temperature. They're going to get faster and faster all the way through these races. Now, they do have a warm-up lap to get the tires up to temperature, but in qualifying, you're leaving the pit lane cold. And every single session we've seen the pole sitter come out on the very last lap.
So, as 57 seconds is remaining in qualifying, I want to thank our sponsors for joining us this evening. Of course, Radenso for sponsoring the series, and Lazy Rocket Vinyl Produce. Got a package from Lazy Rocket this week, Tom. Got some new stickers for SimTV, and my goodness, are they pretty. They do some great work and very fast as well, and so does Radenso. If you're interested in radar detectors, they've got some new products that you might just want to check out, and the links in the video description. Again, Radenso is also offering one of their radar units for each class champion this season. So really excited to have them on board with us this year as Tony Chow gets another run down through the S's, but won't have time to complete this lap. Again, both races tonight for the GS car is going to be split by TCR races. TCR race 1 will be after the conclusion of this, and TCR race 2 after the conclusion of the second race of the evening for Grand Sport. So DJ Alessandrini, like clockwork, jumps up to the top of the board there, Tom. Nyman down to second, 25 thousandths of a second behind.
It's pretty tight, though, and just as we say that, looks like Paul Darling actually just jumped to the pole. A driver we talked about has been one to beat the entire time, so Alex Barroso in the 5th position has been another one that's really come on strong. Cool to see Sasha Annis up here. I think we've seen that name once or twice in other rounds, but not a regular that I can remember. So especially with Darling grabbing the pole at the very last second by just about 1/10 of a second over DJ Alessandrini, it's a super stacked top 10 and more. It's going to be good.
We'll head down to the racetrack here in just a minute and roll through our starting lineup, but as we wait to see the lights flashing on, I believe that's Kurachek's car there, and of course we don't have multi-class traffic to deal with. We haven't had that since week 1 at Circuit of the Americas, but next week, or next round in a couple weeks, we're going to be heading to Virginia International Raceway. That's a totally different racetrack, a lot more technical in some ways on the backside of the course, but it's also, as you describe it, really just 3 long straightaways, so I think that's going to be an interesting challenge. This is kind of our last traditional kind of American road course with those flowing high-speed corners. Road America's coming up, and so is Spa-Francorchamps. That's coming up 2 rounds from now, and that's our one of our only trips out of the United States. So a lot of exciting things coming up here shortly.
And I hear there's a night round at that race.
There will be a night round at Spa, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
That'll be great. It's going to be beautiful. So I think my keys for this race are certainly going to be draft. The run down the back straight, Road Atlanta, is similar to VIR in that a lot of the passing opportunities and racing opportunities come on one big long straightaway. These Caymans draft pretty well once you get into 5th and 6th gear. So the passing opportunity down into 10A is going to be huge, and putting yourself in position to be under attack at any given time, attacking at any given time is key. But also just minimizing mistakes with all of the bumpiness, all of the temperature that is on the track surface, and how aggressive a lot of these guys have been over the last couple of weeks. Just keeping your nose clean, and we do invert the top between 10 and 20 cars after race 1 for race 2, so that has always turned race 2 on its head as we've advanced from 1 to 2.
So let's roll through our starting lineup here. Tomo on the front row this evening. It's going to be Paul Darling in the 155, and DJ Alessandrini is number 91. Got hot performance colors on that car. He'll roll off in second.
Dan Nyman on the second row, looking for success this week. Ken Hausiel will come alongside him on row 2.
Back in row number 3, it's going to be Alex Barroso in the number 15 and Sasha Anis in the number 140 car. He'll roll off 6th out of Canada.
Always a guy to watch, Nicholas Johnston starting 7th, and Kurt Crum, another serious competitor in this series, starts 8th.
In 9th place, Chris Lapras in the 183, and Evan Schickel from out of New York will start in 10th in his teal number 33 car.
More guys familiar with each other, Lex Kuracek and Tala Sadiq will start side by side in 11th and 12th.
13th and 14th, Zach Buchanan in the number 40 Project 2 machine, Tony Chow in 14th in the number 68 out of Ohio.
And Jackson Robillard in the 98 starts 15th with Mark Labance alongside in the 92 in 16th.
17th place, Max Lutfer in the 688 out of Indiana, and Riley Thompson, actually Lutfer is now in Michigan rather, but Riley Thompson rolls off in 18th place.
Yeah, Thompson will be fun to watch come through the field. He's been really fast at other rounds. Andrew Rasmussen and Anthony Montello will start side by side in the next row.
Benita Kuna back in the 94 car will roll off 21st, and John Laughlin in 22nd.
Francois Brou in the 69 car in 23rd, and Charles Bowley will start in the 24th spot.
Back in that's a 25th and 26th will be Brennan Burke in the 6th car, and Rob Gagliardo in the 609 back in 26th. And it looks like it's to wrap up the rest of the field there as we head through 6 and 7 on that long back straightaway that you talked about earlier there, Tomo. Pretty quick pace lap around here as well. That pace car whipping around that corner. Turn 1, lap 1, going to be really dicey because of the hot temperatures, but also the blind apex heading up into turn 2 and 3. That's a trouble spot tonight, especially for the TCR cars, because we've seen them struggle on the race starts, but we're going to see how the new rules affect the starts of these races.
Yeah, once again, no leaving the tire tracks of the car in front of you until you cross start finish. Now, what'll be interesting is Road Atlanta has a fairly early start finish line, so we're going to see the green flag come out early, and we're going to see them cross the start finish line pretty early. And turn 1 is usually not a massive problem here at Road Atlanta, but turn 3 is a huge pinch point. So surviving turn 3 and getting a good run down the S's on lap 1 is key. And like you see those drivers warming the tires the last little bit, every amount of heat you can get. Yes, the track temps are hot, but you want these cars to be confidence inspiring on the start for sure.
So the 155 of Paul Darling is going to lead us to the green as they climb up through turns 11 and 12 to turn us loose. Here we go, 13 laps in this race, and Darling and Alessandrini are on pole position on that front row. Green flag flies. Radenso Sports Car Challenge round 4 from Road Atlanta is green. Already cars off in the background. And they're going to scramble down into turn number 1. Alessandrini moves over to driver's right. Nyman in behind alongside Ken Hausiel. These two tangled in Watkins Glen on race number 2. This time, though, so far so good as they head to turn 3, Tomo.
Beautiful to see a clean start, but this is the pinch point. Turn 3, you see a bunch of these guys halfway through the field. They're still not done being side by side. That was Buchanan was side by side with another driver, but everyone has made it through. This is incredible to see so far. A nice single file run. Look at the orange car, Riley Thompson, about halfway through the field. He started a couple positions back from that, already on the charge, but DJ Alessandrini hounding the back of Paul Darling, and Dan Nyman is clinging to them. A little bit of a gap to Ken Hausiel and Alex Barroso as the rest of the field streams down to turn 6.
There's Zach Buchanan taking a look at Lapras down into turn 6, and then into turn 7. The first one onto the straightaway, nice and even. There's one of the bombshell cars side by side as they enter the long back straightaway for the first time here. Nice, orderly, clean start this time.
The new rules look to be doing exactly what they were intended to do, and actually it looks like Riley Thompson and Zach Buchanan both on the move, as they must have picked up 4 or 5 positions, I think, each at this point. Side by side now, darn into turn 10. That orange car of Riley Thompson has been, look at that, up 7 positions. Clears Buchanan all the way down into the braking zone of turn 10A for the first time already. Is Buchanan going to come back to him? No, tucks in, so Thompson up to 10th now after a great start from 18th.
Down the hill for the first time through turn 12, and for the lead, Alessandrini all over the tailpipes of that Darling machine. And the dirt is Hausil and Nyman, and you see in the background Schickel as well. He's got Lapras to his inside as they head to turn 1, and there now Riley Thompson wants to take advantage of a whole bunch of cars tracking out into the gravel at the exit of turn 12.
Yeah, Buchanan's trying to go with him. He's going to go side by side with Schickel up into turn 3, and that corner, turn 12, is flat at the very end of these races once the cars are up to temperature, but it is hairy when these cars are cold, so it's good to see everybody make it through there without much incident, even though they dropped a couple tires. Single file through the S's, that's the best way to get through there easily. And now Thompson, I'm still keeping eyes on that orange car. He's working his way well up through the field, may make his way all the way.
Oh, car out.
That's Nyman.
Yep. He's going to back up and try to get that car turned back around. And I have to wonder, Tom, if this was just a victim of the curbing here at the exit of turn 5. You talked about this in the pre-race, how bouncy it is. Here's a big bounce. Oh, he actually just clipped it. I don't think it was more of a bounce as it was just losing grip on the slippery paint there.
Yeah, it looks like he got right in the nook between the pavement and the curbing, and that can really sling the car around. So another car around in turn 7, right at the apex. That's the 157 of John Laughlin.
And he'll go and get back rolling again. And up at the front of the field, though, these front 2 still tucked in nose to tail. And Ken Hausil sitting in 3rd. And we've seen this trio all over the place. But I'm looking at the 4th place car, Alex Barroso. He could be a spoiler in this, as well as Bombshell 87. But you mentioned Riley Thompson. He continues his climb up to 8th place now. How about 10 spots in 2 laps?
Really curious to hear from him what happened in qualifying that he started 18th, because he clearly has the pace to be up much further. So it was either dirty laps or spins that caused that. But right at the front, Alan Sadrini continuing to hound Darling. And Paul Darling would be the first one to tell you, I don't have the pace for DJ in something like a Miata, although I think he does. But once we get into GT4 cars and faster, I know I can run with DJ. I have the speed. I have the understanding of how the car works. And you see that he's just kind of controlling this pace at the front. And he actually swept both races at was it CTMP?
Yes,
Did he won
was.
both races?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's kind of back on form coming to Road Atlanta this week. But Ken Hausil is still right in touch, and Alex Barroso, like you said, is not gone yet.
The rest of the field, everyone's kind of single filed. I'm pretty impressed with how clean it's been, but these races tick by relatively quickly. If this goes green all the way to the end, it'll be about 15 minutes worth of racing. In the background, there is a couple more cars fighting for position. Robillard and Tony Chow in the back straight away. And Robillard was another one of those drivers that kind of got involved in some of the accidents at Watkins Glen and looking for a redeeming race to maybe climb up the point standings a little bit as Nyman goes around again. This time, I think this is in turn 7, and it looks like he's going to call it a night. Let's go back and take a look. Just got loose.
Yeah, exiting turn 7 right there, and we kind of talked about it in the beginning of the show that Nyman has been looking for success. He came in as a driver to watch. He's had pace every week, but has had issues, whether they're self-induced or being collected in incidents. So those problems continue for his Radenso Sports Car Challenge season. Sasha Annis continuing to run 6th, but I was watching Jackson Robillard, I think, was also up a number of positions after a good start. Maybe not.
15th to 14th for Robillard in the 98. As we're going to go back up to 6th place Annis and Nicholas Johnson, who was one of the winners from Watkins Glen in his number 28 car. And sits right behind 6th place 140 up at the front. 2/10 between all 3 drivers, and we're going to keep our eyes on the 28 car here because he's sizing him a pass into turn 6. This is a tight spot. I'm not sure that this is a great place to pass, but he took a look.
If you get fully alongside someone there, you can make it stick, but you have to get a really good run out of turn 5. You almost need the driver in front of you to make a mistake. And then you have enough time to size them up for turn 6 and get by for turn 7, but you don't want to go side by side through turn 7. You're just going to lose a ton of time to those cars in front. You can see the front 4 or 5 have really broken away, and then there's a big gap back to Annis and Johnston. These cars really take a little while to start drafting each other, maybe halfway down the back straight or longer. So this isn't going to be as much a drafting race as, say, a Spec Miata race or a Skip Barber race. But it is there.
I have to wonder, because we know how much Alessandrini, Hausil, and Darling have worked together in the past, typically in in series where the cars are a little bit slower. Do you think they're kind of applying that same strategy of kind of staying in line, not challenging each other, and just trying to break away from the group behind, or are they racing as hard as they can right now? I mean, it looks like they're working together at least a little bit.
Yeah, I have to imagine that Paul Darling is certainly pushing as hard as he can, and the other guys are staying that close because of the draft, if not that they have more speed. 13-lap race is a relatively long race to be able to pick your points. You don't have to go super hard. But at the same time, you do want to kind of wait to pick your points. It's a huge jump there. Turn 3. You see, watch Riley Thompson come into frame here. The orange car is going to be the next car into frame, I believe.
Yeah, right after this blue car here, I want to just watch the suspension on the orange car, Thompson. Watch how much air he gets right here. Gets that inside curb, bounce, and slams that car 4 wheels off the ground for a moment. That's how rough it is out there with these big curbs and some stiff suspension in these Cayman GS cars.
But again, the guys at the front, they're used to racing these kind of draft races as well as a variety of other things. So at this point, they're probably waiting for the opportunity to pick their points. They're not super impatient at this point. I would imagine laps 7, 8, 9. That's when we're going to start to see things get a little more frantic. Although I say that, DJ Alessandrini looks to the outside of Paul Darling into 10A. That's
he turns, he gets spun, and he goes crashing off at the exit of turn 10B, and into the wall goes DJ Alessandrini. The wing pops off the rear of that car, and you were just saying how you didn't think they were going to fight, but they went down there, they did, and it cost Alessandrini dearly. Oh, man. Go back and take a look at that. So he comes down into the corner alongside Paul Darling. I wonder, does he get a piece of grass here? He goes to driver's right. Does he get on the curb? No, not quite.
It almost looks like he didn't want to do that because he was heavy on the ABS. You saw the car wouldn't turn in, and then he had to fight the car down to the apex, misses the apex at 10A, and then Hausil is doing everything he can to stay as close as possible and just gets into the back of him. Kind of easy to do when you can't see the front of the car, and these guys drive so many different cars in the iRacing service. It's, you know, the box that the draw is around your cockpit when you're sitting in your sim rig is kind of hard to know exactly where that front end is, and unfortunate that Hausil wasn't able to stay out of the back of Alessandrini as he was reeling from what looked like probably a mistake. I don't know that he really wanted to be that long aside Paul Darling.
So now the question becomes, these cars don't really rely on the rear wings for a whole lot of downforce. Is it going to impact him? He's already catching back up to Mark Levance. How far back through the field do you think he can go without that rear wing?
Let's see, where did he end up? He ended up about 17th, 18th, 17th, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think he can get tops 15 for sure. That's a pretty easy task. Anything beyond that's going to be tough.
Fernando Dacuna going for a loop at the exit at turn 7. Just a little bit too much power on track out. He'll go around, drop to 19th place. Up in 10th place, there's Salah Sadiq in the white Martini liveried car. Evan Schickel right behind as they make their way up towards turn 11.
Schickel's got a bit of a run, but it's hard to go anywhere with this in turn 12. You see that huge, massive drop. I think it's 10 or 11 stories, but grabbing some curb on the inside of 12 and maybe now a run. You can make a pass into turn 1 from the outside and the inside. Not going to do it this lap.
Tony Chow sized him up as well. He started the race in 14th, gained a couple spots, but now has 2 more right in front of him that he might be able to grab. And hitting turn 3, getting that right is such an important part of getting a solid run down through the S's, but it's so upsetting. That curb there, it's even bigger now in the real world, but it's really tricky to nail it right. It's either full commitment or no commitment, because if you do that kind of halfway, where you kind of get just your right sides on it, it can be a mess. It's good to just straddle it entirely and cut that corner as much as you can.
The curb is one thing, but the entry is a completely other part of the story because it's completely blind as you climb up through turn 1. You know, turn 2 is basically a non-event as far as a corner goes, but it's critical as your entry to turn 3 is completely determined by how you get set up for turn 2, and you've got to turn in for turn 3 before you can see it. It's really a muscle memory thing, which is so much harder in a simulator when you're relying simply on vision. You know, in a real car, you can get that muscle memory down much more easily because you know exactly kind of at this point in my RPM, at this vibration under my butt, at this rotation that I'm feeling, you can kind of get it right every time. It's really hard in a simulator. So these guys at the front have figured it out, certainly. I was observing this battle between Buchanan and Lapras. Also, these guys super tight, and Buchanan has had a really good run up through the field so far.
They head down the hill through turn number 12. That is a bravery corner there. Tom, tell me a little bit about turn 12 and your first time through there in a race car. What was that like, trying to keep that car full throttle as you come down the hill?
Well, the first time I drove it, I was in an 80 horsepower Honda Civic, so it wasn't that scary, but it's still scary. I mean, your stomach drops a little bit, and it's another one of those where the corner is completely blind when you're turning in, and if you drive straight until you can see the corner, you're off the track. So you just kind of have to know where it goes. It's less intimidating. These are basically the fastest cars that you're going to get through flat without downforce, so these guys are pretty on the edge versus talk like a GT3 car. They have a lot of downforce. It's actually easier to go through there, even though they're going a heck of a lot faster. But turn 12 is kind of the novelty corner on this circuit, the way that the corkscrew is at Laguna Seca. It's one of the more famous corners in North America in motorsports. And now DJ Alessandrini picks up another spot. That's 14th over Anthony Montello.
He'll move his way back up now, sets his sights on Jackson Robillard. We saw Schickel and Sadiq side by side through the S's. Schickel picks up a spot, moves into 10th. At the front of the field, Paul Darling continues to lead this race, but Ken Hausil is keeping him honest. And now we're getting down to the last 5 laps here this time through, so I'm not sure that we've seen all the racing done just yet. And Alex Barroso, we've seen how good he's been in recent weeks, just kind of creeping. And also, look at Kurt Crum. He started this race in 8th. He's up 4th and looking for a podium here.
It seems like that 87 car is always lurking in the background of these front shots. He's always kind of tagged onto the end of the front leading pack, ready to take any opportunity he can get. And he's had some really strong runs as he gets some understeer there through turn number 1. But these cars do not race in a way that you wait to the last lap, you get one passing opportunity and you go. You take your chance when you can at this point in the race. So you better believe if Hausil, Barroso, or Crum see an opening, they're going to take it right now. But interesting to see mirror images of other races happening. And Paul Darling was able to control the races from the front at CTMP. DJ Alessandrini, meanwhile, actually is on a mirror image of his COTA event where he had an issue in the first race. There he goes around, so maybe that rear wing going off.
Another look at it here as he came down into turn 10A. Was on the brakes. Oh, he got hit from behind. It was Anthony Montello that tagged him and sent him around. And he drops now down to 18th place. A couple drivers sneaking their way on through, but from bad to worse for Alessandro. Not really running for points all that much in this series. He missed a couple weeks, but I think he's still so competitive that this is going to really hurt. And I think for race 2, the invert might benefit him, but he's got to gain some spots if he wants to feel a bit more comfortable about that invert helping him out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is this is kind of a mirror image of if he gets inverted up to the front like he did at COTA, he was able to just kind of take the lead and run away from it with about 10 seconds at Circuit of the Americas round 1. So he may be set up for just a repeat of that event. Not what he wants, obviously, but not all hope lost for race 2 if he gets inverted up towards the front. But these top 4 are super tight starting lap number 9.
And we got 4 laps to go this time through. Darling and Hausil nose to tail as they climb the hill in turn 1 again. This is another corner that you kind of have to commit to, and that rumble strip at the corner exit, if you're all the way over there, you've missed your line, you've missed your apex, and that is a terrifying curve to get your tires up on, because if you step over that another 6 inches, you go for a ride and you meet a concrete barrier head on at about 100 miles an hour. So it's one of those corners where you hope you get it right, because if it goes wrong, your night's over. It looks like Buchanan and Lapras have tangled down there.
Those guys were 5/10 apart every time I looked at the timing screen, so they came together, it looks like at the apex of turn 1. Buchanan trying to go up the inside, actually did nothing wrong, really just so tight there. He was in just a little too hot and gets into the right side of the 183.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, I don't know, to me that's just a racing incident there, but we'll see how they feel after that. But they come together down there in turn 1. The line gets so narrow, and it's just hard to run through there side by side.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw Ken Hausil have a big moment exiting turn 3 that lap, but it hasn't hurt him too badly as he's still right behind Paul Darling, and it's a lot easier to cling onto the back of a driver in front than it is to lead the way. So this is an impressive drive from Paul Darling. Now look at Ken Hausil. We're on lap number 10, and this is when he's starting to look racy. Look in the background still also Nick Johnston is not really that far from this battle once they start racing, so it could turn into a top 5 battle if they're not careful.
So 3 laps to go this time through, and lap number 11 of 13. And look at Hausil taking a gander up the inside. Hole is open. Darling left him a space for a second, then went all the way down to the apex as they run up the hill towards turn 3. And now they're going to jump over the curb. Darling a little loose on the brakes there. Is he overheating his tires a little bit? He seems like he's struggling with some rear grip.
And these cars don't like leaning on the ABS, so they have anti-lock brakes, but they don't like overusing them, and they can really abuse the front tires. I saw Barroso with a pretty hairy slide. Whoa, Hausil with a huge step into turn 5. That is terrifying in these cars.
And those curbs there, in some cars you can use that curb to help rotate the car on corner entry to 5. In this car, that's almost a death sentence. You get on that thing, the front end starts bouncing and hopping. It's almost unrecoverable, and Hausil was sideways when he got onto it, so managed to hang onto it, but lost a couple tenths of a second to Paul Darling. The draft should keep him close, and maybe a push from Alex Barroso. Maybe these two will work together.
This may also be Barroso's chance to work his way towards Paul Darling, because you can't really make multiple passes at once around this track. It's super challenging. But yeah, it's big code brown for Ken Halseal that lap. He's got to recover and take a deep breath and focus back on his points to get back to Paul Darling, who's now got a breather through turns 10A and B for the first time this race.
Oh, Tal Sadiq and Tony Chow, this is for 8th place right now. These two have been going back and forth for a little bit. Now they'll run into turn 10A. That's Chow on the inside, Sadiq on the outside.
Chow takes 8th position, and Chow has really come on strong in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if it's extra sim time or if it's extra Wheaties in the morning or what it is, but Tony's been really, really quick in everything he's raced that we've seen over the last couple weeks. So another impressive drive. Look at that, 14th to 8th, up 6 spots for the 68 car.
Trying a 1:27.967, which is a little slower than the drivers in front of him, but much faster than the drivers behind him. So gapping 9th through the rest of the field. Up at the front, though, 2 laps ago, and now Paul Darling is driving off into the sunset, battle for second.
Yeah, Barroso has now gone side by side with Halseal exiting turn 5. I don't know which one of them, what happened to get that going, but now they're back to single file. Kurt Crum not able to do anything with it this time. Nick Johnston a little bit closer, but Barroso is looking racy on Halseal, and Halseal, I don't know if he's really got the raw pace to get back up to Darling.
See, I mean, these 3 cars together, you'd think they'd be a little stronger. There's Tal Sadiq around in between turn 6 and 7 in the short chute there. And he'll pull back on course. I think he was by himself, so just lost it coming out of turn 6. Maybe got a little bit of grass, but he'll drop down the order quite a bit. Meanwhile, for second, oh, they're all together here, Tom, and they're giving up a chance to run for Darling because he is gone.
Yeah, Darling's got the W if he doesn't make a mistake, and now Kurt Crum is trying to capitalize on whatever attack Barroso made on Halseal. It looked like they had some contact at 10A. So Halseal was sideways, and now both of those drivers go through, and look at this, like we talked about, Johnston is there, and he's going to go for the pass in turn 1, side by side, down into the apex.
It tightens up.
Are they going to get through clean? We saw that not work earlier. They make it happen, so that's good, clean teamwork racing right there. Oh no! Johnston slams the door on Halseal, going into 3. Man.
That was tight. That was a little tighter than you'd want. A little close for comfort, but down the hill. We'll go back and look at that issue in turn 10 after the race here, but Paul Darling drove away 2.1 seconds as those guys were all kind of wadded up in 10A and 10B, and he's just put on a clinic. Oh, Halseal in the background almost loses control.
Disaster at the end towards this race for Ken Halseal after a strong start. But yeah, Darling didn't really start to do anything different. He's just been taking off these laps, and once these other guys decided they wanted to race for second instead of first, that's what gifted that huge, now 2.2 second gap at the front for Paul Darling. And again, that's insurmountable with only a lap to go.
And Rasmussen in the Ventus Rennsport car, he's going to go wide in 5. There goes the car on through. That is the 67 of Lex Kuracek that he'll go on by. But for Paul Darling, from the drop of the green flag, led from pole, had one side-by-side moment with DJ Alessandrini, but for DJ it ended with a spin and a crash into the wall, and Paul Darling comes down the hill in turn 12, and he'll pick up a Radenso Sports Car Challenge race win, continuing from Mossport a few weeks ago.
Race win number 3 on the championship season for Paul Darling. We got 16 rounds in Radenso Sports Car Challenge. So this is shaping up to be a good points round for Paul Darling in the 155.
Vinny DeCuna loses it on turn 7 yet again. That's the second time tonight that's happened. Meanwhile, in front of them, Rasmussen and Kuracek, they're not done fighting yet. This is for 13th place. Exited turn 10, up the hill, one more corner left, and running side by side down 12 is something you don't really want to try, but they might do it. Down the hill, Kuracek right in behind. Rasmussen will grab 13th place as they run through the dirt at corner exit. Francois Brew and Vinny DeCuna now for 18th place. And Brew's going to run a little wide. DeCuna's going to go back by. And he'll come down at 18th place. Francois Brew down at 19th. Anthony Montello had a bit of an issue on this lap as well. He'll bring it home in 20th. Well, let's go back, Tom, and I want to look a little bit at coming to the white flag. The issue back with Ken Halseal, as well as Johnson and Crum and all those guys as they got down towards turn 10, because that's really where they lost this race. Here's a look.
Yeah, these guys in super tight formation, and Barroso had been racy on the back of Hausil, who goes defensive down into turn 10A. Oh, and it looks like Crum actually came from way far back, misjudged his braking zone, loosened up Ken Hausil just enough that Barroso was in the position to just kind of drive by, and then Crum goes, well, I started the job, might as well finish it. Gets the run up through turn 11 and down into turn number 12, which is also what allowed Nicholas Johnston to come into the mix as they now go back up into turn number 3. And that was when we saw Johnston just slam the door. I don't know if he thought he was clear or if he just wanted to make that power move and say, nope, I'm fourth now. And I was also just kind of taking a look at the points. This is what happened. Looks like Hausil grabbed some inside curb once again, which we've seen him do at least once before. You see, look, these cars just hate that. They do not like the curbs whatsoever. And this is a big point swing. Ken Hausil and Paul Darling were the top 2 in the championship with about 13 points separating them. And Ken Hausil has gotten a ton of bonus points on the season, but I think this is going to swing towards Paul Darling's favor with that difference in position. Look at that big slide.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But here's a look at the results there, Tom. And obviously, the things are going to look a little bit different points-wise after the night. But Darling, Barroso, Crum, your podium. Then Johnson, Hausil. Riley Thompson from 18th to 6th. That's a great climb for his Simsa Esports car. DJ Alessandrini, 16th place without a wing. That's not that terrible of a position, all things considered. And Anthony Montello, Francois Brufini, and D'Acunha all running into issues. Lupfer, Nyman, and Gagliardo did not start this race. So Lupfer and Nyman, the only drivers that did not finish race 1 of the night. So race 2 in TCR is coming up, Tom. Do you think the rules change is going to be enough, or are we still kind of expecting a little bit of carnage and chaos in that opening lap?
No, I think we'll see another repeat of what we just saw. Nice clean start. Again, turn 3 is really where I'll be watching. There's a pinch point there. Once everything kind of files through turns 1 and 2, that as long as you make it through there, you're probably good for the rest of the lap, at least until turn 7 or turn 10. But all of those guys, that was where a lot of the penalties were handed out. We'll talk about that when that race is starting. But I think the point has been made by the race admins, and we'll see these guys put on just a clean, good show.
All right, we'll be back in just a couple minutes with TCR race number 1. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back live to Sim TV and the Radenso Sports Car Challenge 2020 round number 4 from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Race 1 in GS was won by Paul Darling. Tom, this time we're going to race TCR cars around here for another 13 laps. And after last round at Watkins Glen, there was a lot of argy-bargy, as there was at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So some new rules and a lot of penalties handed out to try to quit all the chaos that was happening at the race starts.
You know how NASCAR has the big one, right? And the super speedways have those big ones. Well, TCR here in Radenso Sports Car Challenge somehow on road courses with these little front-wheel drive touring cars had the big one. 3 race starts in a row, 1 at Watkins Glen, 2 at Watkins Glen, and 1 at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So after 3 for 3 like that, that was really where the series administrators kind of looked at it going, what can we do to fix this problem, both in mindset of the drivers, but also in rules? And if you kind of reference the names on the left side of your screen, we have Dylan Broyles got a penalty last race, attempting to pass before the start. Caleb John Lavender attempting to pass before the start. Tyler Jones, unsafe rejoin. Tyler Jones, avoidable contact. Kyle Herbst, who's actually on suspension this round, avoidable contact. So a lot of these drivers getting points penalties last round, getting probation actually for a round or 2. And what that means is really the driver's mindset, I hope, is shifted into this round. When you start to get those kind of, hey, you're being watched reminders, especially when they come with consequences, that's going to be a big change in the way you approach these races. But also, as we mentioned for GS, there is a new rule for the series, which is you must stay in the tire tracks of the car in front of you all the way until the start-finish line, because the green flag comes out earlier than that. And what that means is you can't initiate a pass before the green. You can't anticipate the green. There's no advantage to anticipating the green, really. And what we saw there in the GS race was a super clean start, a super clean first lap. And we hope to see the same this time through, because these guys, once they've gotten through those incidents, have put on absolutely unbelievable racing.
So one of the drivers last week, or last round, that made his way through all the carnage was Andrew Pilata, and he was actually involved in the massive wreck on the opening lap in Watkins Glen Race 2, drove his way to the front of the field, where then the leaders tangled together. I think it was Caleb John Lavender and Kyle Herbst. They tangled, and Pilata drove on through and won Race 2 at Watkins Glen. He's sitting on provisional pole right now with 2 minutes left in qualifying. Is he the obvious favorite tonight? Because Elias Roman just ran only 99 thousandths off of Pilata's time.
Yeah, and Roman might be coming through on a final flyer right here, so he's got one more shot potentially. But Pilata has certainly found the pace in this car. He's got a feel for it that a lot of drivers struggle with because of the front-wheel drive platform and the way these cars like to make speed. So Pilata, I think, on raw pace is certainly one of the picks to win, and he's done a phenomenal job with racecraft as well, as you mentioned, being involved in that incident early on and then coming back through the field. And he actually was involved in both the Race 2 incident at CTMP and the Race 2 incident here last week at Watkins Glen. So kind of the second week in a row, we watched it happen. We're like, man, we just start to feel for the guy. And he was certainly kind of one that we were cheering for. But something we didn't expect necessarily, number 83, Dennis Barrett, has gone to the pole. It looks like on another flyer. I think everybody's got another flyer, so this may not be final, but Dennis has always kind of been in the hunt for the top 10, sometimes the top 5, but it looks like Dennis has got some serious pace in that 83 car this week.
Yeah, and this is a driver that we've seen quite a bit in the Washington, D.C. region series, and he seems like he's really kind of glommed onto this front-wheel drive TCR platform, and has actually some pretty solid pace in this car. And you're going to go down with a 129.072. That's a 20,000th of a second of an advantage over Andrew Pilata. And Chris Harp down in the 36 car runs 13th, a couple more cars on track. But going back to Dennis, he really seems to click with this car. And remember, back at Watkins Glen last week, he was near the front of the field, was actually one of the drivers that was involved in the trigger that started that big wreck. So he was at the front of the field when that all happened. He just never really got to see it through. So if he starts up front, which it looks like he's going to, that's going to be a dangerous driver tonight.
Yeah, it'll be a ton of fun to watch. It's, you know, we see a lot of the same names up towards the front, and looking down even through the top 10, it's not a ton of surprises, but Dennis Barrett with a huge effort in qualifying here. That plaid car is going, if you've seen Spaceballs, he's gone plaid. So the 83 at the front, Pilata second. Guys to watch, though, I think Caleb John Lavender, not the qualifying he wanted to see. Looks like he's down just inside the top 10. He's been up battling for the podiums and wins. So look for that 999 to come through the field. Brad Adams, just outside the top 10, always races better than he qualifies. And he'll be fun to watch. But really, it's a cast of familiar characters. The guy to beat for the season really has been Eric Mickey, who's there in the center of the frame, pink wheels on that number 88 car. Or sorry, Is he?
That's the
White wheels.
Yep.
Yeah. White wheels for Eric Mickey. He's got a bunch of wins on the season. He makes good choices and hasn't been collected in the incidents nearly as much. So I think he's another guy to watch for sure.
Yeah, he's been absolutely killing it in this series, and this is actually a sixth place starting spot. Or actually, I don't think he's quite sixth. Is he third or fourth? It looks like he's second row. Third row. So he is P6.
He is sixth.
Again, this is a kind of I want to say it's a bad starting spot, but he's been qualifying up towards the front and also making his way through the wrecks. Even last week at Watkins Glen, got involved in that collision. Still had a pretty good race at the end of all that. So he's going to be dangerous. I see, is that Ryan Kristoff right behind in the 46? I think it is. Maybe Kristoff can have something to say. He'll start 8th tonight from the Grid Life iRacers camp, and got a brand new livery on that car. It looks really good out there, Tom.
I think you may see his real-life car that he races in SCCA and Grid Life Touring Cup start to resemble that, as he's loving the gold leaf. And then behind you see the black and white and blue. That's Caleb John Lavender that I identified earlier. And then Brian Carwile is alongside in the white and maroon, who's had some awesome runs. Brad Adams at the back of frame in the red with the white Grid Life up the side. It's really, I keep reading down further and further. Will Robbins is next to Brad Adams. These guys, the further down the list, I keep going, man, he's all the way down there. Man, he's all the way down there. Man, he's all the way down there. I mean, we got a stacked field at the top of at least 15 in this race.
I think one thing about this category in particular is the talent pool is so close. I mean, the differences between the slowest guy and the fastest guy seems like it's a lot less in this class versus the Grand Sport class. It's just a really good, really talented group of drivers. It's a conglomeration of Grid Life Touring Cup drivers, Grid Life iRacers, Washington, D.C. Region SCCA drivers. There's some SCARS drivers in here as well. So it's really good to see a lot of these guys kind of all grouping together from all the different leagues that are broadcast on SimTV, all coming together. One driver, Darwin Meitz, in the number 72. He went out at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park and won in one of his first round of the season. So another Bombshell Racing Team car we have to watch out for. I don't see any Andrew Mickey here tonight, so it looks like he won't be in the Bombshell crew as we roll through turn number 5.
He's in the 86 car starting.
Oh, he is
15th.
here. Oh, he swept through right there at the back of the shot zone. There's Andrew. He'll start at the tail. So we'll just let the starting grid kind of roll on the bottom of the screen there, Tom, as we head towards the turn 6 and 7. Talk to me about these cars on the opening lap. You've actually won in this car at this track. How was the start on the cold tires?
It's less scary than the GS cars that we just watched, but it is a challenge because they don't like to turn nearly as much. Again, they are an Audi RS3, but it is a front-wheel drive touring car as a race car. So there's not nearly the amount of grip in the front tires that you're going to need, and these cars actually usually struggle more with the rear grip at the start of the race because the rear grip is so low with the cold tires. So as long as you keep the rear end in line, you're usually okay. It's really easy to put too much input into the wheel and get the car into a push as well, though. So they take a different driving style. They rely a little bit more on downforce, although they're not hugely downforce driven. They do have enough to kind of stabilize them. So while the GS cars kind of float around a lot, we saw some sliding, we saw some kind of right on the ragged edge driving. The TCR cars tend to carve a little bit more, and yes, you're balancing them just on the edge of control, but it's a very different driving style. So that's why we see kind of different drivers rise to the top of these two different fields.
And a little bit lighter than, actually a lot lighter than the Grand Sport cars as well. So there's another big difference there between those two cars as we head down the hill, turn number 12 for the first time. Remember the new rule in effect this week, gotta stay in the tire tracks of the car in front. Let's see how they do. Green flag flies racing from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and TCR race number 1. Here we go.
Really fast start from Dennis Barrett. The pace was high before the green flag even came out, so the field pretty strung out. Looks like, that was Tyler Jones with a wiggle down into turn number 1 in the Lazarus car, or is that Dylan Broyles? I'm not sure, but you saw the rear end of that car stepping around. These guys not very single file yet, but Andrew Pilata goes to the front in front of Dennis Barrett, so the lead has already changed hands.
So far, so good, Tomo. I think we made it through this time, but turn 5, another bit of a pinch point here on track out. If someone makes a mistake, this is a little bit blind. So as soon as we're through here, I'll consider this a successful start. Evan Adams through the grass there at the bottom of the hill, but straight and successful start for Road Atlanta, race 1 for TCR.
Yeah, bravo TCR drivers. They make it through, and Caleb John Lavender, the wrong driver. I said Elias Roman has kept 3rd, Dylan Broyles 4th, Tyler Jones 5th, and Eric Mickey not able to make up. So there's not a lot of changes really here at the start. Everybody kind of slotted in where they qualified, except for Andrew Pilata, who's going to look to use his experience in this car to now drive away from Dennis Barrett, but he's not successful. Look at Dennis, is glued right there.
Here comes Dennis Barrett up the rear windshield of the number 14 car into the braking zone for turn 10A for the first time. Side by side, Broyles and Elias Roman into the braking zone. Roman real deep on the brakes. ABS vibrating the pedal there, but Pilata stays P2 as Barrett, oh, he's off track. Pilata off course. Yeah, it is, the 14 car.
That's a really odd spot for a front-wheel drive car to have ended up by itself. So we'll see maybe on a replay what happened with that one. But Pilata, disaster. Now look at the gap that Dennis Barrett has all the way back to Dylan Broyles and Caleb John Lavender. He may have even gotten a cut penalty at turn 10A because he's dropping like a rock, and that's unusual. So back all the way, looks like to 8th position behind Caleb John Lavender. Now going up into turn number 3. Brad Adams has made up a couple spots, and he's going to slot in just between Ryan Carwile there.
I want to go back and take a look at the Pilata incident here before things get too wild. Here's a look at the 14 car. Let's see, was there contact?
Oh, he chucked it in so fast into 10A, just gets the back end. That's that rear tire heat we talked about. The car's cold, and that's just a simple mistake. Easy to make, but just kind of race ending at this point as he's dropped outside, now down to 14th. The 14 car all the way down to 14th.
There's Andrew Mickey. Driver's right, driver's left on Benson Ty. And Ryan Carwile struggling with some internet issues there. That's going to be a distraction for the lead drivers in front. But all the way at the front of the field, Dennis Barrett has a 1-second lead over Dylan Broyles, Tyler Jones, Eric Mickey up to 4th. And he's got his teammate Darwin Meintz in behind him. Maybe those two can work together and draft right back up to the leaders. Brad Adams is in 9th. He's moved up inside the top 10. And Ryan Kristoff up to 6th now with Caleb John Lavender in tow.
Great start for Kristoff, and he's been spending a lot of time in this car in the last couple weeks, so he may be feeling pretty confident with that. But the gap that we saw, whoa, Meintz almost makes the same mistake as Pilata does, and now that's going to give Kristoff an opportunity to come up to the inside for turn number 11 and 12. They're going to run side by side down through here. That's pretty comfortable if you're Kristoff. It's scary as heck if you are Meintz.
And Eric Mickey off in the dirt just a little bit, and Tyler Jones going to go back by. Battle for third side by side into turn 1 as they complete lap number 2. And they're going to go door to door up the hill here to turn 3, and it looks like Mickey's going to be able to recomplete that pass before they head to the curb.
Yeah, back up to 3rd for Mickey, so that's a good advance from 6th for the driver that's kind of been the guy to beat for all these races so far this season. But a breakaway at the front between Dennis Barrett and Dylan Broyles, two drivers that we haven't seen in the podium positions yet this season. Really, with that kind of back and forth between Mickey and Jones, they got the opportunity to stretch that out to about a 2-second lead between 2nd and 3rd now.
This is what happens when you give them a little extra curb out there on track out. They will use every single inch of it there, Tom, all the way out to the gravel pit. So these front two, as you mentioned, kind of broken away. It's 1.8 back to Eric Mickey, but I am not convinced that they're going to be stuck like this for the rest of the race. Eric Mickey has been so fast, I am confident that he'll be able to bring this field right back up to them. And if these two start racing, which looks like they are, that's going to be even accelerated, Eric Mickey catching that front group.
Yeah, they're one side-by-side exchange through turns 10A and B that is going to bring the rest of the field back into this, but Broyles now has the preferred line down into 10A, 10B. Barrett stays there on entry, but he's going to tuck. Nope. Little hesitation on turn-in. That's going to slow Barrett's roll just a little bit, but I think Broyles pretty much got through there nice and cleanly up to the lead for the bright green 818 car, and now Mickey's got a pretty good run. He closed up almost a second that lap, so they're going to bring the rest of this field back into the battle pretty quickly. You see there's not a significant gap in the field until well outside the top 10. There's Pilata now flashing through, only making his way back up to 12th so far. The pace in this whole field is just so high.
And we have not really seen any incidents other than Evan Adams going off track for a moment. Everyone's been pretty clean and green. Francis Castillo-Romero hits pit lane in the number 96. Not sure what that's for, but Broyles has the lead and now putting a slight gap on Dennis Barrett. If I'm Eric Mickey, I want to get to that 83 as much as possible because you don't want to let Broyles drive away.
No, and Broyles looking tight and tidy through the S's. You saw Barrett was just a little bit further behind the car, chasing it down those S's, and you can get away with that without losing much time, but that tells me that Dennis is a little more on the edge than Broyles, who might be a little more confident in his car at this stage of the race. Side-by-side for Adams and Robbins, who have both made their way up at least a couple positions this race.
And Will Robbins started in 12th. Brad Adams started in 11th. He's gained 2 spots to crack the top 10 in a 9th. A little wide for the 35, and these cars just will not accelerate if you get them out in the dirt or the gravel, and we saw that with the 35 car. So for the lead, though, Dennis Barrett's recaught Dylan Broyles. I think we're going to have another pass for the lead here shortly if he takes the run to the inside, and he's going to sit in line for now.
That's a smart move. Again, there are too many, you lose too much time to go side by side through here, although that pressure, now Broyles gets a mistake, loses the back end into 10A and 10B, and you really have to lead these cars in on the fine edge. With the front wheel drive, you get the back end rotating, and it's really easy to overstep that rotation going down into 10A and 10B. And, but I think it's a smart move by Dennis not to attack this lap, because that's just going to bring these guys back even closer. I say that though, they're pretty much there.
Yeah, Darwin Mites went a little wide at the exit of 12, but will continue with no issues there, as now the front four are all together. That's Broyles, Barrett, Mickey, and Jones. Barrett misses the apex there slightly, and now Mickey closes right up to the tailpipes here. Broyles gets away 6/10 up, make that 7/10 up the road as they head down the hill.
Mickey's going to want to make quick work of Dennis if he can, because Logan Broyles is going to try to use this opportunity to gap. You said all the curb and more. Now, these front-wheel drive cars are pretty confidence-inspiring over those bumps. Yeah, you're not turning, really, but you're not going to have a full loss of control like we saw some of the GS cars do. But Mickey has to make something happen, I think, this lap, really, if he wants to be able to continue to run down Logan Broyles at the front.
Now he'll be able to use this draft here pretty effectively and go right on by the 83. He got a pretty solid run. Now these cars don't draft amazingly, but he might have just enough to have a look-see at Dennis Barrett into turn 10A as we approach the halfway point of this race in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes here. Here he comes to the inside, not going to waste any time. Battle for second.
He's got the freight train deep on the brakes down, actually backs out of it and lets Dennis take the position, but Dennis was in pretty hot, keeps the car right on the edge of control, and now with the over-under for Mickey, he gets the inside line up through turn 11, and that's going to give him the position down to the front straight pretty easily. Barrett's going to drop to third as Mickey uses the inside curve, and now it's Jones trying to go with him.
Tyler Jones will tuck in line in fourth place. In the background, you see Will Robbins popping out of line to go by Brad Adams into turn one. Adams going to move over driver's left and let him on through. No, he's going to battle right around the outside and keep Robbins behind him. That was a power move to hang out there. Big slide through turn three, missed the curb there slightly. There's Pilata, he's back up to 12th, goes a little wide at the top of the hill though, and if he might be able to crack back inside the top 10, but this is still kind of a lost race for him, considering he started up front.
Yeah, the best hope that he can have is he's pretty, I mean, he's in the invert zone, top 10 to top 20 also for this field get inverted, so we could potentially see the entire field really get inverted like we did at Circuit of the Americas, which would really be interesting if Pilata is towards the front of that one.
Back up towards the front, Broyles last time by, he ran a 129.482. Eric Mickey's last lap was a 130.059, so a gain for Broyles on the last lap. And curious if Mickey can reel him back in. We haven't really seen these two get to go head-to-head like this just yet. Curious to see which driver can come out on top after another 10 minutes and 45 seconds of racing.
They were in a pack together at Watkins Glen, but like you said, yeah, we haven't seen them kind of head-to-head yet. And these cars will continue to get faster for a couple more laps, maybe lap 7 or 8, and then they're going to start to fall off, which is another thing about how well you manage the tires, both in heat and wear. For these front-wheel drive cars, they really are pretty hard on these front tires. And excuse me, while they get faster and faster, they also do not manage the heat very well, as now Dennis Barrett there running wide once more. And you can get away with really abusing the car in the first couple laps, but you're going to pay for it later in the race.
Right on board with Ryan Christoph as we head down the SS. Barrett's offline, and that's going to compromise all three of these next couple of corners, and actually slams the curb on driver's left. That's going to bring Tyler Jones right into it. Ryan Christoph aggressive over the turn 5A, 5B curb, and now will run out and try to close the gap on Tyler Jones, but didn't quite get the run that he needed to get that gap closed before turn 6.
You saw Barrett struggling really hard to get the car turned for all of those corners down the S's, and meanwhile, down into turn 5, the back end of the 29, that was Jones's car, just dancing, perfectly placing the front end of that car into the corner, which tells me that Dennis was working his car a lot harder in the beginning stages of this race, may not have as many resources left to finish this one off as Jones. That's more the balance you want to see. You want to see the rear end swinging around just a little bit. You want to see the front end hooked up, leading that car into the corner. And don't count out Christoph, Roman, Mainz, who's now side by side with Lavender, down for 7th and 8th position.
Here they go, and that's John Lavender taking a look at the inside, and he'll have the spot. Mainz tries to cross him over, but looks like he won't be able to get the run to be able to do it. So move John Lavender up to 7th after he started the night in 9th place. That's a +2 for him as we work lap number 8 of 13 here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Now Eric Mickey has caught that leader, Dylan Broyles, as they run through turn 1.
Yeah, made quick work of that gap, didn't he? Down to just 0.2 of a second up into turn 3, and there's that blind entry we were talking about. So hard to place where that curb is. Broyles misses it. Mickey nails it.
And now down the hill again. And there's a little bit of dirt and gravel. You already see the red Georgia soil kind of all over the inside edge of the curb, and that's where drivers have been kind of dragging their tires through the grass. And now Mickey's got a good run here, but I'm thinking he's going to sit in line here. He's planning for turn 10 to be the passing opportunity.
That's certainly the easiest place to get by, and if he can get that draft, as you identified, these cars are not super draft machines like a Spec Miata would be. Whoa, Robbins goes off. Plata was off the corner before.
He just came to a stop, not exactly sure what that was for, but just pulled off the course. Wanted to take it back and see what happened as we go back to the battle for the lead.
But again, if Mickey can kind of make clean work of this, it looks like he's got the pace to start to drive away from Broyles. But Broyles, if he's got just enough to cling on with the draft, side by side down into 10A, Mickey's going to force the issue this time, trying to put the pressure on. Sweeps around the outside, going to get the inside for 10A. They door dunk.
I don't know what that was, but I liked it. Door dung as they come through 10A, 10B. Right here, here's the contact again. Just a little touch. All's fair in love and war, and sometimes in racing as they go through turn 10A and 10B. So, move Mickey into the lead. Behind him, Christoph has a look at Tyler Jones into turn 1. And some damage to the rear of Christoph's car. I think he's had someone in the back of him earlier tonight.
Yeah, he's got Roman, who had that. I'm pretty certain that Roman had a cut penalty on when he got really loose down into 10A on the first lap. He dropped to about 7 positions after that corner, which doesn't typically happen quite that quickly.
Whoa!
All the way out to the dirt. Holy cow.
That's why they put a rumble strip all the way out there, is because they know someone's going to try to use it. There's one on the access road over there, and it got used. Elias Roman takes a look at Christoph. That was tight. Now Tyler Jones on Barrett for third.
It's changing. Yeah, look at Christoph's going to go for the run on Jones, but I was going to say Barrett has actually closed up to the back of Broyles, now kind of evenly gapped between Mickey, Broyles, and Barrett at the front. So I kind of thought Mickey and Broyles would start to pull away from the rest of this group as they had been, but Dennis has rallied in that plaid Audi and is coming back towards the front, too.
Yeah, there's really an 8-car breakaway. Now Christoph takes a big dive up the inside of Tyler Jones into 10A, backs out of it. That's going to leave him subject to Elias Roman's attack at the exit of 10B, but Roman can't find room, and there goes Jones off track in turn 11, and through goes Christoph, and now bring Elias Roman in for 5th.
Yeah, and can Lavender go with him too, side by side down through turn 12. It gets so tight. I think both of these guys are going to get through on Jones. So Jones falls from 4th to 8th almost on one lap, 7th, I should say. No, he's going to stay in front of Lavender.
And he'll try to mount a fight back on Elias Roman through turn 3 here in just a moment. And a little bit better run on corner entry, but he keeps just missing that turn 3 curb, and it's such an important corner to get right to help your car rotate. But back in the lead, Broyles, as you mentioned, Tomo, he has brought Eric Mickey right back to him here. So they're going to have a 2-car battle, and once they start fighting, Barrett will be back here in just a moment. It'll be 3 laps to go next time by.
Yeah, and Barrett's going to be able to cling on to the draft. I think Christoph is just out of touch. He's going to get a sniff of the draft off the back of Dennis Barrett, but not enough to pull him any closer, as Barrett's going to have a nice strong draft off of the top 2 cars, and two cars poke a bigger hole in the air than one. So Barrett will almost be able to close this gap up down the backstraight, I have to imagine. Question is, will Broyles look for a pass this lap, or will he push? No, he's going to look to the right. Passing on the outside into 10A is doable. We saw Mickey pull it off last time, and Broyles is going to try it this time.
Incredible stuff here in Radenso Sports Car Challenge into turn 10A. Broyles on the outside, Mickey on the inside through the grass with the left front tire. Now the run up the hill using every little bit of torque in this turbocharged engine. Crest the hill now down through 12, side by side, coming to 3 laps to go. Mickey pulls back out front. Now Barrett is here. 3-way fight for the lead.
Yeah, wow, impressive drive off of the outside of turn 10B to be able to sweep around the outside of 11 and across the nose of Broyles. Great run for Mickey out of 10B that time, and that's really challenging to pull off in these front-wheel drive cars.
I see
Christoph has somehow found himself in no man's land between the top 3 and the 5th place down.
But he is coming. He was the fastest car on the racetrack last time through with a 1:29.5. That was a whole half-second quicker than the front 3 as they all fought together. So Christoph is not out of this just yet. Let's keep him in the group. Elias Roman might be a little bit far back, but if this front group gets racy, there is only 1.7 seconds between him and the leaders.
And these guys, look at the very back of frame. Andrew Pilata is somehow back up to 9th and is really within touch of even 5th position if these guys don't be careful, or are not careful. Don't be careful. If these guys are not careful. Now down into turn number 7, Pilata looks like he's got that car up underneath him. He was pushing so hard before that he was getting sloppy, but he looks like he's taking a breath and kind of rallied this one. Might be able to fight his way up to that battle for 5th even.
Again for the lead, neck and neck, side by side down the very long back straightaway here at Road Atlanta. Then into the hard braking zone for 10A. Mickey might actually get himself cleared off the nose of Broyles. No, Broyles still runs side by side and a little bit of a slide.
Barrett's off. From third, Dennis Barrett misses 10A. He's going to get a cut penalty there. Usually bleeds itself off, but a mistake on the brakes for the 83 car after an amazing run. He's going to hold 4th, so that's not a huge mistake, but costly nonetheless. We were focused on the front. These guys were side by side, and Dennis Barrett probably had some target fixation, was in so deep.
Yeah, I think you saw him kind of turn in a little bit, and I think he was kind of turning while he was on the brakes, and the ABS will help you a little bit with that, but he still just couldn't get stopped in time. I'm not sure if he completely blew the braking point or if he just, as you mentioned, kind of target fixated and just got on the brakes a little bit late and had the car already turned in too early and just blew off the right edge of the racetrack. But he'd only dropped to 4th. Christoph goes to the podium 2 laps ago, still battling for the lead. Broyles wants it back, and he has stopped at nothing, and he's like a little mosquito in the ear of Eric Mickey right now.
And he's tried that outside move every single time down the back straight. It'll be interesting to see if Mickey gets comfortable with what he's going to attempt to do, and then if Broyles might switch it up on him. But Mickey's getting pretty comfortable protecting from the outside now. So if these guys just continue to try what they've been attempting for the last couple laps, that's kind of the definition of insanity, isn't it?
I mean, you think so. I mean, he's trying that move, and now you just have to wonder, what does he do different? Because if he tries the inside lane, he make a mistake there, you're going to take out the driver. Here he goes. Mickey protects. Now to driver's right goes Dylan Broyles with a big run. This time, this might be the best one yet as they head down to the braking zone. Oh, Mickey's going to outbrake him again.
Yeah, fully defends this time. He's going to get a clean run through 10B and no hope on a run even for Broyles. You see he's got just a little bit ahead of steam, but there's really nowhere to go. Although, turn 1 is not a bad passing opportunity here. They're going to take, is this the white flag?
This
time through? No, it is the white flag.
Here they go.
Where's he going to go? Shows the nose. You can do it, but he's not going to try it. No, Broyles decides better of it. Mickey's going to maintain the lead, leading through turn 1 on the final lap.
Behind him, a battle for third. Christoph Barrett, Elias Roman all together. If they work together, they might be able to catch these lead guys as they battle for the win. Let's see if they can get back up there. But Broyles has tried that right-hand side move as these guys continue to battle side by side down the hill. Broyles tried that right-hand move again. Now Mickey is expecting the same thing this time. So what can Broyles do different? He's only given 1 lane. He's got to have 2 decisions somehow from only that 1 option.
And Mickey has really, he has left a left side for Broyles to try, but Broyles doesn't look like his eyes are going over there. So he's either not trying it to plan ahead, or he's just really committed to making that right side work. This will be to tell all. Dennis Barrett almost touches the back of Christoph through turn 7A, but at the front, look at this draft as they take a ride with the 818 Dylan Broyles up the front.
Here he goes, up into 6th gear with a big draft. Mickey all the way on the left side of the racetrack. Now moves back over to the right. Broyles has to take all the way to the right lane. Side by side into 10A and 10B for the final time. Mickey again goes defensive. Will they touch? A little bit. Push, shove, and Mickey has to give him space. Broyles alongside as they run up the hill. Turn 11, turn 12, 2 more corners. Checkered flag waves as they run down the hill. An excellent defensive driving by Eric Mickey and a great attempt by Dylan Broyles. But Mickey again will grab Radenso Sports Car Challenge victory in round 4. What a race.
And that is race number 4 that he has won on this season out of 7 rounds. So continuing this dominant performance for the 88 of Eric Mickey in the bombshell Audi. And like you said, perfect defense, left him a car width, but no more. And Broyles was inch perfect, really. They touched just for a moment, but no harm, no foul. Just really had nowhere to go without plowing through the back end of Mickey. And it was nice to see that neither of them got dirty on each other. There was a quick touch. And then one more touch here at the apex of 10B. In the background for third, they were also all over the place, but Ryan Christoph held on to it for third. So the podium, some new faces up there. Eric Mickey, Dylan Broyles, and Ryan Christoph.
Yeah, Ryan Christoph with a great podium finish. Here's a look at your race results for the first TCR race of the evening. We're going to do it all over again in a little bit. We have GS Race 2 coming up here in just a couple minutes. But again, Ryan Christoph in podium with the Grid Life iRacers car comes back in third. Andrew Mickey up to 12th. Louis Alessi 13th. Pilata finished in 7th place too. So he actually had not a bad race. And the invert should help him out and put him ahead of all those drivers he was fighting earlier. Brad Adams got a top 10. He finishes 9th. Tyler Jones all the way back to 10th with his mistake.
Yeah, and for me, that invert is key. We're going to have to see between 10 and 20 cars will get inverted for this race. There's only 21 in the field, and if everybody joins, that means all but one potentially could be backwards on the grid. That's going to be key for both the GS and TCR races. I just can't wait to see how this goes.
We're going to step away for just a few minutes. Stay with us. We'll be back for GS race number 2 in just a few minutes. Welcome back live to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and Radenso Sports Car Challenge round number 4, presented by Radenso and Lazy Rocket. Before we get the second GS race of the night, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for their involvement with this series. Of course, Radenso for sponsoring the series and offering season-end prizes, and one of their Radenso radar detector systems. They're offering those to each of the class winners. And Lazy Rocket Vinyl Produce, they produce some great stuff. They just sent me a little care package this week with some Sim TV stickers in there, Tom, and they are so cool. I can't wait to give them to the Grid Life people once we get an event going again in the early summer. So thanks to both Radenso and Lazy Rocket. Make sure you check out both of their products in the links in the video description below. In the meantime, so a minute and 20 seconds until we grid. We've got a top 20 invert there, Tom?
Yeah, top 20. This is the first time we've seen a full invert. Every race we invert between 10 and 20 cars. It's a random draw between races, and it's 20 cars this time, which means Anthony Montello, who I believe is running the Lazy Rocket Graphics livery on his car, will be our pole sitter for this race in the 24 car. There it is, beautiful livery. On the outside of the front row will be Francois Brew in his number 69 car. On the flip side of that, that means the front runners from last race, Paul Darling and Alex Barroso, will be way back on row number 10. And while we had a perfectly clean start to both of our races so far this evening, when we invert things tend to get pretty crazy. So this will be really challenging for the guys at the front from previous race, Paul Darling, Barroso, Crum, Johnston, Houseal, Thompson, those guys to come from outside the top 15 for the first time this season back up towards the front.
I wanted to touch on one more thing about Lazy Rocket, because in that little package they sent me, they can do matte stickers and glossy stickers, and there's no minimum order either, which is, so when I was looking for stickers to get, I was trying to find a place where you could just order, like 20 or 30 instead of having to get 500 or 600 of them, and I was just blown away by, I have glossy, I have matte, I have color, full color, it's just, there's so many different options, and Anthony's turnaround time was incredible, so make sure you check out Lazy Rocket if you're thinking about doing any kind of stickers or decals. No backgrounds, it's like a transfer decal like you'd have on a full-size graphic. They also do full vehicle liveries as well. They do everything from little stickers all the way up to full vehicle liveries, so it's pretty cool. Pretty cool business they have over there. So, you mentioned the invert, Anthony Montello, Francois Bruche in the front row, Finny DeCuna rolls off in third. DJ Alessandrini, though, he had a disastrous race one, but he's going to start in fifth, so that's a little bit of a blessing in disguise for him there.
And that's exactly what we talked about during race one. This is a mirror image, an exact replica of Coda for DJ Alessandrini. He had another incident on race one, started towards the front because of the invert for race two, got to the front very quickly and drove away by a gap of 10 plus seconds from the rest of the field, while everybody else came through the field. Now, thinking back to that race, Ken Houseal started, I believe, 18th and made his way up to second. Riley Thompson started, I believe, 17th and worked his way up to 5th or 6th, I should say, I think. So it's not undoable, but it takes time. And when you're DJ Alessandrini in 6th versus Riley Thompson in 16th, it's really challenging to kind of make up that gap.
Take a look at the weather information here, Tom. 82 degrees ambient still, but the track surface has cooled way down a little bit later in the day now here in Braselton, Georgia. So that's going to make these cars a lot faster, a lot grippier. The cold tires might be a bit more of an issue in this race. We also got that inversion, which is going to make things a little bit dicey. But I think the cooler track temps will make these cars at least a little bit grippier once those tires get warmed up.
Grippier, yes, but another thing we've seen in the past is that the way these tires kind of grip the surface when they have a lot of grip, they can make the car that much more bouncy and that much more edgy. So yes, they're going to be faster, but that doesn't make them necessarily easier to drive. So we'll kind of see, especially with the way these cars handle the curbs here, if you get the car bouncing just the wrong way, the tire grips versus slides the way that you weren't expecting, it could be a completely different but equally challenging scenario.
Beautiful sights here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. I love the S's. This is probably one of the most photogenic sections of North American racetrack, and it's a gorgeous and very intense part of this facility. And the next time we come down through here, we'll be well over 100 miles an hour, kind of slinging your way between the curbing. And we saw this, look at the bottom left of your screen, that rumble strip on the access road, that got used in one of the TCR races, and I think we're going to see some drivers track all the way out there and use that again here in race 2 for GS. So, Anthony Montello, Francois Brew on the front row. We're going to have the starting order rolling across the bottom of your screen as we head onto the back straightaway, Tom. But a lot of unknowns coming into this race. We're about to find out what those unknowns are going to look like here.
Yeah, I think another car, a couple other drivers to watch. Zach Buchanan had an amazing charge in race number 1, coming outside the top 10, back up towards the front, and he's going to start inside the top 10 once again in front of all those theoretically faster drivers that he was running down in race number 1. So that car could be fun to watch, the 40 right there in your screen. A couple other drivers that are starting in the top 10, Finian D'Acuna, Mark Labanc share the second row, Tala Sadiq, Lex Kuracek, Andrew Rasmussen, and Jackson Robillard, all drivers that we didn't talk a lot about in race number 1. But they're starting in the top 10 this race. They have a perfect opportunity to capitalize on that. And one thing I observed with the difference between how this track is versus the rest of the season, different drivers' strengths are coming to life here at Road Atlanta versus the rest of the season. Anything could happen really here.
John Laughlin had a bit of an issue there on the pace lap, got himself in the wall along back straightaway, so got himself back up into position as we get ready to go racing for race 2 in Radenso Sports Car Challenge Round 4 from Mission Raceway Road Atlanta. Green flag flies and racing again. As they head down towards turn 1, Brew got a great start, but Montello was supposed to be the leader. Now Finian D'Acuna goes to the inside, 3 wide for a moment, backs out, still double wide as they head down into turn 1, side by side, 3 wide for a moment, getting really dicey through turn 1. There goes Rasmussen off course as we head up to turn 2, 3 wide here, Labanc in the middle.
Alessandrini trying to make quick work of the field already, but Labanc is going to go defensive and keeps the 3rd position. Finian D'Acuna up to 2nd. We saw Kirk Crum way off at the start in the back, but now Francois Brew, who I think was the driver that fell off the track. Yes, he's scrambling back in 4th.
He's dropped all the way down to 7th. It's Alessandrini in 4th, and he goes to the inside of Labanc on the exit of 5, and he'll grab that spot and move DJ up into the podium spot already. With a bad scramble out of 5, though.
Whoa, look at Riley Thompson is up a couple of positions. I think that is this is the top 5 from the last race. So Darling is now in front of Ken Hausiel. Thompson is...
Oh, trouble! Sasha Otis around right in the middle of the field. 3 wide, 4 wide for a moment. Hausiel splits the difference, and everybody's scrambling on the back straight. Very chaotic start, but everyone stayed straight so far.
Yeah, that was a great move by Hausiel. He was behind all those guys coming into the corner, and now he's ahead of everybody. That makes it's just that fast how it happens. But look at who's in front is Alex Barroso up to 9th. He's made the quickest work of all these guys. Now Darling and Crum side by side.
Let's Robillard way deep on the binders into 10A and 10B as they come on through. There they go!
Tags Johnston. Darling goes on the outside into the grass. Oh, and now Johnston collected.
Yep, Robillard, Johnson, and everybody else. There's a 6 car. Brennan Burke, it slows way down to miss it. We're still not done battling side by side. You knew that was going to happen. Now into turn 1. Alessandrini. Oh, Dakota's way off down in turn 1. He's going to pull back on course, but drop outside the top 10 as the rest of the field rolls on through.
And that is right there, Barroso, the 15. He's made the quickest work of the top 10, top 5 from the last race. He's now up into 8th with the 15 car. And there's Ken Hausiel, Lapras, Crum, Thompson stringing through the field. Now Darling is the big loser in that whole exchange down at turn 10B.
16th to 10th for Hausiel on the opening lap as we exit turn number 5. Charles Boltley's going to drop it. Ooh, that's a big impact down there at the bottom of the hill. Meanwhile, Alessandrini's gone through. Montello went off wide in turn 5, so move DJ up to the top spot. And I'd be surprised if anyone could chase down this Hawk livery number 91 with this big of a jump.
Yeah, it took him a lap and a half, but now he's clear of the field. And the guys that have the similar pace on raw speed to the 91 car are still fuddling around in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. And that's just by merit of the invert. That's how it works.
And one man's trash, no man's treasure. And for Alessandrini, race 1 was trash. Race 2 might be a treasure. Down into 10A. Apex is at 10B, nice and clean. Who's on through? D'Acuna trying to recover from his spin and slide off course in turn 1. Hausiel has just gone on by for 9th place. Lapras now taking a look at the 94.
There's the drop for turn number 12. Hausiel is starting to pull away and keeping up with the back of Francois Brew.
Oh, D'Acuna.
Field really strung out now.
Yeah, they really did strung out. I think it was just because how close everyone was to the opening lap. That incident in 10B kind of spread everyone out. Car around sideways. It's Rasmussen hard into the wall on the front straightaway for the 11. That just is not where you want to be at the end of lap number 2. Laughlin and Paul Darling trading spots, move the 155 up to 16th. But he did not make the progress that Ken Hausiel did. We talked about the points picture there, Tom. If Darling wants to kind of, keep good points in comparison to Ken Hausiel, he's got to start making up some ground. They're going to go 3 wide. There's a mirror in the middle of the track. It gets kicked off course by, I think that was Kirk Crum. And some debris from somebody. Didn't see who it was. Someone's missing a mirror here, and I'm going to bet you it's up the road somewhere.
Yeah, looks like it might have been Montello's passenger mirror, potentially.
No, look at Zach Buchanan missing the driver's side mirror. And there's nice.
But we called him out as a driver to watch. He's P3. That 40 car has picked up a bunch of positions. Now Mark Labance looking to the right, trying to get some clear air, as a clear line of sight maybe down into the entry to turn 10A. And now Barroso lunges on Schickel through, puts him into the top 5 already, that 15 car in 2 laps. We have about 10 more laps to go as across the lap this time.
Francois Bruce started second, down to 14. This is not going the way that he wanted it to go. Up back in 6th, Kuracek and Barroso, are beginning their fight now for P6. Alessandri's got a 3.2 second lead. I'm just wondering, how much is that mirror the lack of that mirror gonna distract Zach Buchanan? I mean, obviously if you're in VR, it's a bigger deal, but it's nice to have some mirrors, and when you're missing it, that can be a big distraction.
Yeah, it totally depends on the mirror setup he's using. If you're in VR, if you're using the rear mirrors in the car, that could be a disaster. But someone like me with a single monitor and not nearly the technology, I'm using the digital mirror that's supplied in the game. Whoa, Montello goes around hard into the concrete, exiting turn number 3 into the tires for the 24 car.
Go back and take a look. Just got too much curb. Very similar to what we saw in race 1. Oh, we got to catch the end of the tire barrier, come to a very abrupt halt. And I'm not sure if the tire is damaged on that car. Oh, you see it vibrating there on the left front. So I think he's, oh yeah, that's vibrating badly. So he's going to have to come to pit lane and repair that car, unfortunately.
Seal almost did that in race number 1, but Montello just got away from him, and that gives Alessandrini almost 5 seconds lead over Zach Buchanan, Mark Labance, Evan Schickel, who actually, Barroso had gotten in front of Schickel and Kuracek the last lap somehow, and he's back behind both, now makes the pass on Kuracek, and now sets his sights on Schickel. These guys just off the podium.
Crum and Christopher Lapras, 8th and 9th. And Francois Bruce slowing down again into 10A. I'm kind of concerned what's going on with the 69 because he's been way slow entering 10A the last few laps. Meanwhile, behind him, Montello, with the damage on that left front tire, he'll have to come in and fix that car, or maybe he'll stay out. Not sure how bad that damage is inside the cockpit, but certainly doesn't look great.
Stays out, so he obviously has some confidence in the car. Crum a little bit wide in turn number 1, and that might give Riley Thompson or Chris Lapras a chance to close that gap up. There's the 3 battling for 8th position. Crum, Lapras, Thompson, just inside the top 10.
Montello did hit pit lane, so he will come on down. Must have been a pretty late entry because it looked like he was committed to the racing line, but now through 5 go Crum, Lapras, and Thompson. Thompson started this race in 15th spot.
Dakuna, holy cow. Full airborne exiting turn number 5, and he didn't get the evil death snap that these cars can do. Look at this.
Oh, man. That's every inch of the racetrack and about 10 more feet after that. So, well, good thing the IMSA officials aren't watching that one because they'd, as John Heinhoff would say, that was a bit naughty. If not intentional.
Paul Darling was probably just as scared for his own life as Dakuna was as he was watching that happen just in front of him. And Darling really the only one outside of the top 10 and 15 that hasn't been able to make a whole lot of progress.
Oh, no, Barroso too deep into turn 10. And wow, that was Kuracek did a great job. Or that was actually Schickel, rather, that kind of bailed out to driver's right because he saw Barroso coming. That was close, but Barroso, he went through and got the spot up to 4th.
And now watch Ken Hauseal. He's going to force the issue. Schickel sees him. That's a smart heads-up move, but Hauseal really, whoa! Kuracek's trying to come back on it too. Look at this crazy battle for 5th now. Now Hauseal benefits from all of that madness, and he picks up 2 spots in 2 corners, back up to 5th now.
That was wild as they went up towards turn number 1. Now he's going to slot himself into P5. He's run away from Paul Darling, who's still stuck back in 13th place behind Finney and Dakuna into turn 3. Right on board with the 155.
And all the championship progress Darling had made in race number 1, I think he had basically clawed the lead back to be pretty much tied with Hauseal. This is going to take all that progress away and give Hauseal a huge championship lead again, and potentially also may bring other drivers back into that.
I don't think Dacuna's a big fan of turn 5 tonight. He's had a lot of trouble. Last time was tight through there, now he was loose, and he'll give up a spot to Darling, and now Tony Chow has a look at him for 13th place.
Chow took a ride on the first lap through the S's, so he's done a good job to salvage that. He kind of went off exiting the entry to the S's down towards turn 5.
So working our way to the halfway point of this event. How about Kurt? Whoa, 3 wide for a moment down into turn 10. Schickel backs out. That was going to get dicey.
And now Kuracek super deep on the brakes. Crum delays his turn in just a little bit to let Kuracek get in there if he needed it, but they don't go single.
Oh, there they go! Around goes Kurt Crum, and he's got Kuracek right up underneath, and he's got him jacked up on the front tires. And those two going to disagree over the space that was required there.
Yeah, I thought they had just cleared, and then they left camera frame, and somehow they got back together.
Here's a look. Oh, current check. Oh, that was way late.
Ooh,
Go up underneath.
Naughty there.
I think he thought he had a nose in there, Tom, but that's not really, I mean, he's not, you got to be established alongside, and that really, the hole was sort of there, but that was too late for me.
Yeah, I didn't see any hole for sure, and obviously things are hot and heavy in the car, so it's a different story when you're just trying to get everything out of it. But just no hole there. He may have even not meant to really get into him. He may have been just trying to see and not really known where the edges of the car were.
So they'll both continue. Looks like Kirk Crum got the worst end of that down in 17th place. We're working lap number 7 of 13. Out in front, though, DJ Alessandrini, the new hot colors on that car tonight, continues to drive away 8.3 seconds. But behind him, here's a battle for third, Barroso and Labance.
And I think Barroso's going to get that one pretty easily. Looks like Labance didn't get the greatest run off of turn number 7, and that's going to put Ken Hausiel within touch of Labance as Barroso sets his sights on Buchanan. And Buchanan usually has a lot of pace in that 40 car, so Barroso, this will be his most challenging fight yet.
To 10, this is Lapras, Schickel, and Riley Thompson.
Schickel's been in every battle today up in this top 5. He does not want to drop any further. Super tight for Thompson on the outside, grabs some curb. That is way out there on the entry to turn number 12. Finally gets back in line with Chris Lapras.
That's not, that normal strip out there is not really one that you want to be on in turn 12. That's the code brown curve out there in turn 12. Because if you get to the end of that, and it actually ends before the turn in to turn 12, if you get on the end of that and hit the grass, it's game over. And that is a hard hit down there if you make a mistake in turn 12. So Thompson hangs on, but has to get by Lapras here for 7th.
Looks like Hausiel has pretty much caught up to Labance for 4th. Which would be just more points now. Dacuna goes for a ride exiting, but yeah, there's the gap between Labance and...
He was closer and did the same thing he did in race 1. Big slide to see him lock up the brakes trying to get everything lowered down. Sasha Honest also had an issue down here, I believe at the exit of turn 5. Here's a look at that, already out of shape as he came down the hill. And I think Vinny Dacuna, as you mentioned, had a bit of an off as well.
Turn 5 is so tricky. We saw Hausiel have that problem twice, and it's almost like you either have to commit all or none going through there, because if you just get some of the curb, that's the worst place to be. You need to have all of it or none of it, and Hausiel keeps ending up on just some of it, and that's really not what the car likes, especially with these cars not handling the bumps very well. Whoa. Still, all of this action now, Thompson and Lapras side by side. Now Thomas Sadiq's trying to try to come into this one in the 163 car. Takes a peek. Whoa! Darling is in this one too, side by side, 2x2 through turn 12.
Oh, this is getting slicing and dicing. Now Darling has a look to the inside of Sadiq down and towards turn 1, and Thompson on the outside of Lapras as they enter the corner. We've seen this go wrong before. They're going to do it.
It's not over yet, though. Lapras just now finally drops behind Thompson as they come into turn number 3. Beautiful drone shot with now Evan Schickel. Something happened to him to drop off the back of Hausiel. I think he was battling. Oh, no, he's actually pulled out a lead from these guys as they've been battling.
He was able to get a little bit of a run on these guys and drive away. So Lapras sits in behind Riley Thompson. He wants that spot back, so I'm not sure we're done seeing them fight. Up at the front, Alessandrini continues to drive away. Last time by, he was still 4/10 quicker than Barroso, so here's a look. There is DJ Alessandrini. The next best car is Alex Barroso. Wait for it. There he comes under the Mazda bridge in the background. And Zach Buchanan has dropped to 3rd, and Labance and Hausiel begin their duel for 4th in the background.
10.5 seconds, that's what that looks like. The length of the back straight at Road Atlanta in a GT4 car. But DJ Alessandrini, again, exactly what happened to Coda, got to the lead early and just checked out.
4 laps to go for him as he leads the way. Labance and Hausiel chasing each other down the hill in 12th. Sizing up a pass into turn 1, here he has a look.
It's going to take it. Now the question is really whether or not...
Labance got the grass on corner entry. He's going to go right into the gravel.
Oh, and he's going to lose the wing too. That's exactly what happened to Alessandrini in race 1. Loses the trunk. And that car's going to be a handful the rest of this race.
Actually deposited that on the racing surface, that wing. So anybody coming in behind has to be careful. That's Dacuna. I think it was a kind of slid off track before it was a hazard, but let's go back and take a look at how he got himself in this position here. Just steps off course right here. grass right there on entry, just a little bit too far.
Probably watching Hausil on his right and didn't really know where the left side of his car was, and until it was too late, gets in there and loses the back end coming through the entry to turn number 1. But what I was going to say is the question mark is whether or not Hausil can get to Buchanan, because it doesn't look like Buchanan really has the pace now that they're running single file solo, and Ken Hausil only has to close about 2.5 seconds to get up onto the podium. But Buchanan now has got a rabbit to chase in Barroso, so if he can just kind of cling onto the back of Barroso, I don't know that Hausil's going to have enough time with 3 laps to go to this time by just to get up there on that podium spot.
So Christopher Lapras now has Paul Darling right behind him as they run out into 10A, and Darling might have a look. He's going to take a dive.
Ooh, a late lunge. Does he get in behind Thompson? Yes. So he's going to clear the front end of Lapras and pick up that 7th position between Thompson and Lapras, as Schickel is still continuing to defend that 5th position for everything he's got.
3 laps to go at the front of the field, and Barroso continues to build his gap on Zach Buchanan. The best battle right now, though, is still for the 7th spot. Darling, Lapras, and Riley Thompson up there in 6th, and they have reeled in Schickel slightly this time through. Bunny hopping over that curb in turn 3, and you see right behind that's Talasidik and Tony Chow's in here as well.
Looks like we've had quite a few cars drop out as this field is so spread out. We haven't seen this much room on a racetrack in a Radenso race this season.
I think part of that is, there's been a little bit of contact and a couple spins here and there, but certainly one of the cleaner races, especially in race 2. We saw a couple multi-car incidents, but they were relatively small. But pole sitter Anthony Montello has retired his car. He will finish unofficially in 21st place. Lex Kuracek is also out, so is Lachlan Johnston and Charles Boley. I don't believe, actually all 3 of those drivers did start this race, so we have 5 drivers reported as out of this race.
Thompson has a run on the back of Schickel, and Schickel is not defending very much right now. Now he starts to swing across, but he's not really going to defend the spot as Thompson comes up the inside for turn 10A. Darling is going to go for the safe, slow in, fast out, trying to get a run, but Schickel now on the back of Thompson. He's going to go to the inside. The 33 car up the inside has the preferred line down into turn 12. But Thompson brave on the curb for the 33, and now Darling's going to go through with the 56, and that little curb hop is what did Schickel in there.
Oh, Darling lifted.
Still in the deep.
Yeah, a little bit of a stack up there, the accordion effect as they got on the brakes, and here comes Sadiq right back into the mix. 4-car fight for 6th place now as they head through 3.
Thompson's going to start to check out. Darling's going to try to go with him as Schickel now drops finally from 5th to 7th. A valiant effort, but those 2 curb hops at the apexes of 12 and 1 really hurt him.
And Riley Thompson now has a top 5 spot, trying to drive away. Oh, he loses it on the exit of 5, and he gathers it back up, but that's going to leave him right at the discretion of Paul Darling to do away with as they head towards that long back straightaway again, and I'm sure Darling will be able to use the draft and have a look into 10A again.
A lap and a half to go. I'm watching the gap just between Buchanan and Hausil, and it's down to just about 1.5 seconds. So Hausil is slowly marching towards the podium, but he's running out of time really quickly. These guys completely checked out from the top, 5th down battle.
Alessandrini comes through. This will be a white flag this time by for DJ. Started in 5th, drove up to the front, and has never looked back. And you have to look back all the way to turn 12 to find Barroso. And then Buchanan a second behind that. Ken Hausil 1.6 behind that. Look, a couple more spots back. It's Thompson, Darling, Schickel, Lapras, and Sadiq. They were side by side for a moment. They've singled it back out as they head down through 12 for the final time.
And Tony Chow has clung on to this one too, so he's back in within striking distance of Tala Sadiq. In that black came in at the very, very back, but Paul Darling trying to do something with Riley Thompson. These guys have come through the field. They started only a couple of positions apart.
Oh, Thompson missed the apex in 3. Darling's having a really good run. Does he try to race them side by side down the hill? Thinks better of it, backs out, but Thompson all over the place as he tries to find an apex somewhere down the hill.
Yeah, nearly impossible to make, and Thompson has struggled a little bit with this exit at turn 5-2, using all the curb and more, but gets through clean. Darling looks like he got through a little bit better and has a run on Thompson. He's going to be well within the drafting distance down the back straight this time to try to take over that 5th position. 5th is the place where everybody wants to be this race.
Looks like it. If they inverted from 5th on back with a race 3, that might help them, but this is the final race of the night for the GS category cars, and for DJ Alessandrini, What a race for him. What a night. Started out with a mistake in turn 10A and 10B. Crashed out, fell all the way to the back of race number 1. But on race 2, the Hawk Performance car comes on through. He wins in race 2 here in round 4 of Radenso Sports Car Challenge at 11.3 seconds back. That's an eternity here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Barroso comes on through. Darling and Thompson side by side for 5th. 10A, 10B crossover. Run up the hill to 11.
Darling's got the momentum, but Thompson has the preferred line. What's going to happen here side by side across the line? Thompson with a ton of Kirby's going to take it. Who got it?
Oh, no.
Darling got it.
Wow, by 30 thousandths of a second across the line. We'll go back and look at that in just a moment. Tony Chow and the rest of the field coming on through. What a race to the checkers there for those two. That was awesome.
And before we cut to that, I was going to say huge props to Alex Barroso in the 15 car. Comes home P2, but he started 19th. Alessandrini started 6th, so I'll give him that 11.3 seconds. A valiant charge for the 15 car. Zach Buchanan, another great charge from around 9th up to 3rd. Seal and Darling round out the top 5. Look at this, how close it was. Darling just hanging on for everything it's got. Doesn't need to make the corner. His digital race card isn't worth anything. Chucks it off the track and just noses 0.03 seconds at the line.
That was pretty awesome stuff there. And of course, Thompson wads it up there on the inside after that. But here's a look at your race results. You already mentioned a couple of them there, but Alessandrini, race winner in race 2 in Grand Sports. So he salvages the night. Barroso Buchanan takes a podium in the Project 2 car. Then Ken Seal in 4th. Paul Darling in 5th by, wow, as you mentioned it, 300ths or 30 thousandths of a second. Jackson Robillard finishes 15th. Sasha Anas had an issue, so did Lex Kurchek. Lachlan and a couple other drivers did not finish this race. Kurt Crum comes back in 12th. That race didn't go the way he wanted after getting caught up with the 67 in turn 10B. All right, so in just a moment, we're going to head to break, and we'll bring you TCR Race 2, and trust me, if Race 1 was anything to go by, Race 2 is going to be even better. So stick with us. We'll be back in about 6 minutes. Welcome back live to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and Sim TV for Radenso Sports Car Challenge round number 4. It's the final race of the night, race 2 from TCR. And Tom, we have seen race 2 have a massive pileup in 2 of the last 3 races. We have a rules change this week. Are we confident that's going to change things? We've got a field invert. That's going to kind of make things a little bit dicey. What are your expectations for the start of this race?
I'm pretty confident that these guys have this. You know, we saw a very clean start to the 3 of the 4 races so far tonight. I think the combination of the attitude check and the rules change have really put this field in exactly the right headspace coming into these races, and we're inverting the top 12. So there were 20 cars that finished the previous race. Top 12 puts Andrew Mickey back on pole, who's inherited the pole more than once this season. It also means Eric Mickey, race winner from race number 1, is back in 12th position. So realistically, we kind of talked about it at the head of race number 1, that the further down the field you go, you continue to see names that are contenders. You know, we've got Tyler Jones starting in 3rd this race. Brad Adams on screen right now is starting 4th. Andrew Pilata is starting 6th. Caleb John Lavender starting 7th. I mean, the invert in this field, you could almost believe that it would be the other way around, and it's not really any different. So I don't think we're going to see nearly the speed spread that we saw with the top 20 invert of the GS race.
So warm-up has about 3 minutes left before we grid for the second and final race. You mentioned Andrew Mickey starting on pole, and it just so happens that he finds himself in that position, and we've talked about this plenty before, but Andrew Mickey in Scars Ferrari Challenge, where they run another format with some field inversions, he's such an amazing defensive driver, and I'm pretty confident if he can get a clean start, he's going to be pretty tricky to pass out front. But I'm really curious about Ryan Christoph, because he got a podium in race 1. I think he's really comfortable in this racetrack with this race car. I'd expect him to be at least a contender for the win, if not the winner at the end of this thing.
Qualified 6th for race 1, finished 3rd, and now he will start 10th on the grid this time. Rear World Racer drives the car, the Honda CRX GT light race car in SCCA Club Racing. It looks very similar to the paint job on this Audi. So his racecraft is high, raced in real life for a long time, and has been spending a lot of time on the simulator lately. So I agree, a guy to watch. I also think Andrew Pilata starting right in the middle of the invert doesn't really change his starting position after that mistake at the beginning of race 1. Is going to have a fire in the belly for race 2, and he'll be fun to watch come from 6th.
So Pilata is number 14. He's overcome more adversity before. I remember back a couple weeks ago at Watkins Glen, was right in the middle of that massive turn 1 and turn 2 pileup. Drove through, ended up winning that race after the leaders tangled. So anything's possible. And P6 isn't that bad of a spot, so I think he's got a good chance of winning as well. Other drivers throughout the field, Louis Alessi in the 43, one of the drivers from the DC region SCCA. We haven't really seen him up towards the front yet, but I think he's got some pace in this car, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him climb up the order slightly. So we'll keep an eye on the 43 in race 2 of the night for TCR. Evan Adams back here as well in the 59 Castrol car. Had a bit of an off in race 1, so hopefully he can keep it on course this time. Elias Roman, another wild card here, Tomo. He's also pretty quick, was at least with the front group last time.
Yeah, he'll be starting in 8th, so he's got a little bit more work to do, but he's been driving this TCR car a lot in multiple different series and doing a great job with it, that 99 car there. Another guy to watch will be Tyler Jones, who had a great run at one of the races at Watkins Glen. He was up in the heat of things in race number 1 this week at Road Atlanta just a little bit ago, and he's going to start 3rd on the 2nd row. So he's potentially, of the entire field, got the best starting position relative to his what do you call it, potential in that 29 car.
42 seconds left in warm-up, and Pilata goes to the top of the board in times, and he'll do one better, a 128.835. Take a look at the weather for this race. Roughly the same as it was for GS Race 2, 86 on the track surface, so a little bit cooler. Will these cars handle a lot better with the cooler temperature? How different is this car in cooler temperatures versus the Grand Sport car?
It has all the advantages without any of the disadvantages that the GS car has. I mentioned at the beginning, talking about the GS cars, that they can get really tricky in a completely different way. In cool temperatures, they can get kind of snappy, really, because they grip and then break away rather than start to slide. The TCR cars, they just kind of grip up and they got a ton of grip and they're great. So these guys will be turning fast laps for sure. I wouldn't be surprised to see lap times down into the mid-28s, low 28s with the draft if these guys are starting to work together.
Warm-up is complete. We'll head down to the racetrack here in just a moment. and get the gridding process underway for the final race of round 4 of Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Make sure you're tuning in next week to Winding Road Magazine's YouTube channel, because we will be heading to, I believe we're headed to VIR there as well next week for Spec MX5 Challenge round number 2. And that will be on Winding Road Magazine's channel. We'll be producing that and commentating as well, Finney and Dakuna and I. And then the week after that, we'll return to Radenso Sports Car Challenge action from VIR ourselves. And then the week after that will be Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. And that track is our only trip outside of the U.S., Tom. And that track is certainly something. You got to be real brave, especially through Eau Rouge up to the top of Radenso. And a completely different challenge for these drivers. A track that a lot of people know quite well, but it's pretty difficult to really carry speed around there and be a quick driver.
I think epic is the word that Spa when it comes to mind. It's picturesque, it's scary, it's fast, it's flowing, it's tons of elevation. It's got a little bit of everything that every other track has going for it. So this will be really fun to watch these guys adapt to that new challenge. What will also be interesting is whether the series administrators decide to mix these fields back together. Now that we're seeing car counts under 30 in these fields, only 20 cars starting this field today. Also on lost my train of thought. Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, I can tell you one thing. We were talking about the Finney and I were talking about the field discussion, whether or not we should bring them back together as a group. And I think the general consensus among the drivers and amongst us was the drivers kind of liked having a bit of a spotlight on them, and we don't have to split our attention between the two categories. So I think we're going to stick with this. I think we're not totally sure yet, but we're still kind of having that discussion as we kind of go through the rest of the season. But I think for now the plan is to keep this as is, just because the drivers prefer it this way because they get more screen time this way. So, and honestly, I think it's been quite nice to have the drivers have their own. This is very much like a setup like SRO America has, where each class of car has their own race. And I kind of like that. So we're going to see how it goes. But as they head down towards turn 6 and 7, the qualifying order rolling along the bottom of the screen here. And Andrew Mickey, again, great defensive driver. He'll have a shot at winning this race. The beautiful Georgia sunset here as we come through 6 and 7. Have a look at the sky there, Tom. It's pretty, and it's going to be a great race underneath us here for the second and final race of the night for TCR.
Pretty and also cool. So these guys are going to love that. Again, guys to watch for me, I got my eyes on Tyler Jones in the second row, starting third. He's got a ton of potential. Brad Adams also has a great starting position in fourth. Andrew Pilata starting up relatively high in the field, but really with 21 starters in this field, I don't know that this race is too long for really anybody to get up there, with even the race winner from race number 1, Eric Mickey, starting 12th. So look for pretty much any of these guys to have the opportunity to capitalize on a podium or even a win.
And down the hill here to begin our second final race for TCR tonight. 21 drivers on the grid. All the way back, it was a 12-car invert, so Eric Mickey, the winner from race 1, starts P12. That's that blue and white Bombshell Motorsports or Bombshell Racing Team car up at the top of the screen. The other Bombshell car, one of them at least, Andrew Mickey in the 86, rolls off as your pole sitter as we crest turn 11 and begin our trek down the hill to begin this 13-lap adventure. Waiting for the green flag to fly. There it goes. Green flag in the air, racing for the final time in round 4 for the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, at a frantic start as everyone slams the throttle and we head down to turn 1.
It's a nice tight formation, and look at this already. Tyler Jones moving up to the second position. Oh, deep on the brakes for Darwin Mines down into turn number 1.
Jones,
and they're going to go wide. That is Shea, and that's Jones. Jones gets too deep in there, and he's going to go for a ride. Barely misses the concrete. Now Pilata is side by side with Brad Adams across the curbs in turn number 3. The field all over the place. Christoph by that is
Trying to see
Dennis Barrett.
Yeah, Barrett in the plaid car as they head down the hill. 2 Bombshell Racing Team cars out front, Mickey and Mines. Now they can work together. See, again, Adams taking the shortcut there as he did in race 1. Cars way off. One of those cars, I believe, was the 503 of Benson Ty. Nice and orderly now. There's Eric Mickey up to 9th already, +3 as he closes in on Barrett. Christoph up to 7th as we head on the back straightaway for the first time.
Yeah, Christoph the hard charger so far, but Mickey's picked up the same number of spots, so those guys on the move in a big way. But you're right, Mickey and I should say Andrew Mickey at the front and teammate Darwin Mines are in a great position to try to kind of defend this field. Eric Mickey is the championship leader. He's got a really dominating performance going, and those two can help him get up towards the front. But they're going to race each other. Look at this. Darwin Mines coming up to the attack on Andrew Mickey.
And into turn 10B, a little bit of a tight line for Andrew, but they're all going to head up the hill now to turn 11. And now Andrew Pilata to third, Brad Adams into fourth, and Caleb John Lavender into fifth as they head down the hill to complete lap 1.
Man, Elias Roman had a big moment on the brakes down into 10A, and I was sure that he was going to tank slap into someone's door, but he gathered it up. They keep it clean, and now Caleb John Lavender is poking out a line on Andrew Pilata. Or is he going for a pass on Brad Adams? Yes, he is, and gets by. Christoph's going to try to go with him to pick up another spot.
Oh, Christoph gets turned to the top of the hill sideways in front of the field. Adams and Christoph get collected and they head off into the dirt. Behind him, Tyler Jones and Lalesi bang indoors as they head through 3 and our points leader. Oh, they crash again. Christoph down the hill. More tires everywhere as that's the 818 of Dylan Broyles. They've had contact. What happened
disaster.
there?
I don't know if that happened as Christoph was trying to rejoin. That car is beaten and bruised at this point.
Here's a look. We'll take our
time. All right, so he's going to try to close the door on Adams there. They really had room. That was kind of unnecessary. It was kind of an awkward contact, really. But Christoph tries to continue. They both join that, what is the motorcycle circuit. And then bad rejoin there from Christoph. Unfortunately, no room as Broyles was perfectly on line, did nothing wrong, and just gets collected. As the visibility there is really challenging, looking over your right shoulder, trying to rejoin in the S's.
Side by side for second, Pilata and Andrew Mickey. Down the hill behind him, Caleb John Lavender. Points leader Eric Mickey went off in turn 1. He's all the way down at 18th place now. That's a disastrous issue for him as he was behind all that. At least he wasn't in it, but Mickey hangs on for second for now as Pilata tries to complete the pass. Caleb John Lavender closes in. Maybe he'll have a run down the hill.
Yeah, Pilata, Lavender, and Roman are going to try to make quick work of these two at the front, but we've said it before, Mickey is a fantastic defender, and Darwin Mines, the longer he defends, is going to just continue to build the gap out in the lead. Trail braking all the way through turn 1, down to the apex for the 14 car. Pilata now takes a peek at turn 3. That's impossible to pull off that far back. And they're going to tuck back in, single file now. And that gaggle for second place is really raging.
And look at the lead that Darwin Mines is beginning to build in front of his teammate Andrew Mickey. Remember how much Mines won by at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park? It was a whole lot, and he's already built a 1-second gap as Mickey is holding up this group behind him.
That's right, I had forgotten actually that Mines had taken a win on this championship so far, but that was now Lavender coming onto the outside of Pilata. Really cool shot, a lot of speed through turn 6, and then finally getting it woed down. As soon as the wheel goes straight, you pound the brakes for turn 7 and trying to get on the power as early as possible without any wheel spin from these front-wheel drive cars through turn 7. And Pilata gets a great run to pull a little bit of a gap out of Lavender and now towards the back of Mickey.
The other Mickey, Eric, is back up to 15th place after his off last lap. He closes in on, that's the 66th Nick Babin there. Right behind is Michael Shea. Ryan Christoph down at 18th place, rejoining the racetrack after getting his car fixed. Brad Adams is up in 13th place, all in a league of his own, or all in his own little area. Is 6th place, Benson Ty, Tyler Jones going at it in 10A and 10B.
Ooh, and that little awkward moment takes Dennis Barrett into the fray. Looks to the inside for turn number 12, and that's going to be pretty easy for him to pull off down all the way to turn 1. It's going to take him a second to clear, but he had the line.
Andrew Pilata through to second. That's a critical pass for him to make, and now Darwin Mines is sweating because that 14 car is incredibly fast. Tie off in turn 1.
I heard a crunch too, so that may have been some contact with either the Alessi car or the Barrett car.
Back and take a look. Was there contact with the 503 of Ty? He had Dennis Barrett to the inside.
Maybe not. They were pretty far away from one another.
Just gets in there a little bit hot, tries to rotate in. No, just right off wide. All tucked in behind Chris Harp in the 36. And this is a beautiful race car, this number 36 machine.
Yeah, I love that. And just behind now, the white car poking out, that's Ryan Carwile. He got disconnected with an internet failure. Posted he had an internet outage between race 1, and now he's got back connection. Oh, a punt to Chris Harp.
And Benson Ty gave a bit of bumper on the 36, and now Carwile sizes up for a pass on the back straight. Side by side, all for 10th. And for the lead, pass for position, Pilata to the outside as they run down to 10A.
Man, makes quick work of that.
Oh, Andrew Mickey on the brakes a little bit sideways. John Lavender has a look up 10B as they run side by side at the hill. A 5-car fight for the lead here at Mission Raceway Road Atlanta down the hill.
Whoa, Lavender gets a big squeeze from Mickey up the inside.
Oh, the leader, sideways, across the start-finish line, 3 wide, and Mines collects it somehow. Wild pass for the lead as Pilata goes through.
Holy cow, that only works in a front-wheel drive car. That would not have ended that way in any other car in this game, but that's so tight down. Look at that. We were looking at Pilata up the inside, and they just have a little bit of a touch, a little bit of net code even, maybe.
Oh, unbelievable. I cannot believe that he held onto that car, drifting sideways, pound the front of the floor and save it. Back to 5th. He's not completely out of this thing yet, especially if this front group continues to race. John Lavender now 6/10 behind Pilata. You got to keep it tight, though. Pilata could drive away.
Yeah, and he was the pole sitter for race 1, remember, so he's got the pace, or I'm sorry, he was 2nd place behind Dennis Barrett for race 1, so he has a ton of pace in that 14 car. Lavender actually didn't qualify all that well for race number 1, so he may be up here by merit of racing, more so than speed. It'll be interesting to see if he can cling onto the back of Pilata. But these cars really don't pull away from each other all that easily. Once you're in the draft, it's pretty easy to stay there.
On the back straightaway, 0.4 of a second, so Caleb John Lavender did close at the exit of turn 7. Now the run down towards turn number 10.
Look at how much that draft is helping him just towards the end of the braking zone. It's going to keep him in touch every lap as long as he doesn't make a mistake, using all the curb and more at 10A, all the curb and more at 10B, and then you're just basically turning with faith that this track has not moved down for turn 12.
Well, a glint off the dashboard as the setting Georgia sun starts to dip below the mountains in the background. In the background of this, you see Tyler Jones setting up a pass on Darwin Mines. Jones started this race in 3rd spot. He dropped back after he had enough, and here he goes, trying to get himself back inside the top 5. A little wide there for Mines. Dennis Barrett going to kick some cones over as they head through 3.
+2, come on, autocrosser, as they say. But gets it back on track. You said these front-wheel drive cars really don't like being in the grass, but the nice part is they're not going to just randomly spin around on you. The front is going to keep pulling itself in the direction that you're going, so he gets away with that one.
Well, you know, Mines has that sorted out already. We've seen that on display. Ken Block would have been proud of that. As we head through 7 again, Pilata and John Lavender are separated by 0.4 of a second, and Elias Roman is here as well. And Andrew Mickey staying inside the top 5. This has been a really solid run for him, and could be a good points day if he just stays where he is.
Speaking of Mickey, Eric is back in 13th, still making his way up to the back of Brad Adams. But Caleb John Lavender doing a really good job staying right within the draft of Andrew Pilata. It's going to be tough for him to get a run unless he can get a better exit off of turn number 7. I saw he had a lot more steering input. Oop, side by side for Jones. Has to tuck back in.
That's Mines and Jones running up the hill. Oh, they're going to touch.
A lot of pink in this shot. That's super tight. Now I got to imagine Mines is a little gun shy being on the outside there.
Whoa. 29 in the dirt on the inside, trying to leave as much space as possible. Door to door across the start-finish line down to turn 1. This isn't any easier to run through side by side than turn 12, but they're going to try it for a moment. No, Mines gets back out in front of the 29.
Yeah, a little braver on the brakes around the outside, and because of the way that elevation catches the car, you can really chuck it in there, and it just kind of slingshots you up the hill. Now Dennis Barrett has rallied from that little off, and he's in that battle too.
Ryan Carwile, Louis Alessi, Brad Adams, Eric Mackey, Chris Harp, and Will Robbins all in this fight. This is for 8th place right now.
That's a mess of cars. Carwile gets to the front. He had some pace in race number 1, but electrical issues again. Internet failed him. Brad Adams swinging the back end around behind Louis Alessi. And now Mickey gets up into 11th now, so he's up 2 spots since the last time we saw him.
Here's Adams taking a look at Louis Alessi into 6. Dives up the inside, no place for him to go, so he'll back out of it. Try again in 7, maybe get himself set for a run onto the back straight.
Good exit. He'll have some draft, but so does Alessi. Alessi still has a sniff of the back of Carwile. So it's going to be tough for Adams to do anything this lap, I think. But there it is. The draft's starting to take effect. You see it just ever so creeping forward towards the 43. Does he do something with it this lap?
Here he goes.
He's going to go left down to 10A.
Track actually, there's a slight right-hand kink there, but now a big dive on the brakes. Can he get it slowed down in time? He will. Eric Mickey tries to close the gap on Alessi. Unable to get the car in the hole, though, so he'll have to sit behind. Meanwhile, up the road, Tyler Jones having another look-see at Darwin Mines for 5th. And these two have battled so much that Barrett's now behind him. I'll take a look at the spot.
He's trying that inside move again, and this time he gets it done through turn number 1. They're side by side up to turn 3, and that's going to be Jones sweeping across the nose, across the curb into turn 3 to pick up the 5th position.
Now down the hill again. For the lead, though, still 0.3 of a second between these two, and coming back to 5 to go. Polana and Caleb John Lavender tit for tat, and Elias Roman's not too far back. It's going to be a 3-horse fight. I think Andrew Mickey doesn't quite have the pace to stick with this front group.
He is one battle from being back in that thick of things, though. If Polana and Lavender start to go side by side, if Roman starts to attack in any way, Mickey can get there.
As Brad Adams chasing Ryan Carwile down for 8th in the 71 car. And Eric Mickey right back inside the top 10 now after his off in turn 1 a few laps ago. He's got Alessi, Harp, Robbins, and Ty all behind him as well. So we have a couple different groups of cars all battling for spots. But how about for the lead? Polana goes defensive into 10A.
Yeah, Lavender starting to fill the mirrors and look racy, and we've seen Roman also make some moves.
Down the hill. 7th to 2nd for John Lavender. For Polana looking back off the rear. Sun setting as he continues to lead this race now with 4 laps to go. Next time by, they head up the hill towards 3.
You see who gets the curb. They all get it. Elias misses it just a little bit, but no harm, no foul. He'll get a little bit of draft down the S's. Looks like Jones is starting to pull away from Mines and Barrett.
Now we're starting to see a bit of separation between most of the cars at the back of the field. So now we're focusing our attention at the front. And I'm just watching Elias Roman because I think he's as quick as the leaders. How do I know this? Because he just ran a 1:28.9, which was a 10th quicker than the 2 drivers in front of him. So I think Elias Roman has a great shot at sneaking in here and grabbing a victory, but I think he's got to dispose of that 999 car before the white flag flies, so he has a shot at the 14 up front.
And getting by is one thing, but getting by in a way that doesn't lose you so much time that you can't attack Polana anymore is another thing. So you can go side by side through a couple corners, eventually end up with the position. But oftentimes when you do that, if you take your time getting that pass done, Polana's driven off into the distance. So he's got to make quick work of it if he wants to stay within touch of the leader.
Polana into 10A, 10B. John Lavender trying to set up turn 10B. And this is one of these corners, Tom, where it's kind of a compromise to get it right, but that run out of 10B is really, that carries your speed all the way down to turn 1. So if you get a bad exit out of 10B, you kill your momentum for about a third of a lap.
Yeah, you're flat out from the time you get on throttle at 10A all the way to turn 1. It's a very long straightaway, even though it's not straight. It's a long flat out run. Dennis Barrett up the inside of Mines thinks better of it. But you're totally right. That's a significant flat-out portion of this track, and if you mess it up, you're losing really precious feet.
Through turn 3 for Mines and Barrett. And I haven't seen the pace come back to the 72 car, and I don't see any damage on that, but he's quick enough to win these races, but really hasn't had the pace in the second round to go anywhere. He's been pretty much stuck in P6 since he found himself there. A little bit wide for both of them, dragging the wheels in the gravel, and a bad run out of 5 for the 72 car Mines.
Goes protective. It's really tough to get an outside move here done, but Dennis is going to try it. You got a lot of banking there, which makes the inside that much better. Oh, Barrett lunges up the inside for 7, trying to fill the mirrors more than anything, and that's going to kill his run down the back straight, so he's going to have to use this lap to get drafted back up to the back end of Mines in the 72 car.
With Alessi,
for next lap.
Will Robbins, they fight for 11th, a poor run for the 43 out of the corner. And right behind them is Chris Harp in the 36 car as these two run door-to-door down the back straight.
But up in front, Mickey and Adams are now close together. Eric Mickey, I should say, after that mistake, has closed up within striking distance of as high as 8th position now. He's got 2 laps to do it when they cross the line this time.
Look at the close in the braking zone on Brad Adams. Adams gets a better run out of the corner as they head up to 11, and Carwile is really the one on the chopping block, I think, as those two kind of cue the Jaws music on that 8th place 71 car.
I think if you talk to Mickey, Eric Mickey, he's the first to say, I didn't expect to be dominant. I just kind of find myself here. And I think he's right from watching. He's not necessarily always the super fastest car. He makes really good choices. He picks his spots, and he stays out of trouble for the most part. This is the first race we've seen a mistake out of him at. Look at this at the front. Yep. Roman.
Battle for second, and this is a crucial battle because whoever is second here will get a run at Polana on the final lap, but Caleb John Lavender covers, he keeps the spot, but Polana's actually built a 1-second lead, and this is what happened in a couple of the races tonight where the leaders start, for the drivers in second and third start fighting, and the leader drives away. So these two should be working together because they are running out of time.
That's exactly the point I was making. If you don't make quick work of the guy, you can spend too much time on the battle for the wrong position. And now these two are both dropping off the back of Pilata. Almost a second gap between the 14 and the 999. And that's very close to out of drafting range with these cars. Now, that's the move that Roman needed to make. A lunge on the brakes, a clean pass, gets it with almost no momentum lost. Now up to second, but then he's got to protect on Lavender. Lavender doesn't have a run this time, so Roman, without too much distance loss, he loses a couple tenths of a second that lap to Pilata, but he is still very close. It's really tight on whether or not he's going to have the draft when they get to the back straight this time.
Yeah, he's got to nail this next sector or two to catch back up to Pilata. He closed in a bunch in the braking zone into 10A, but then gave it all up as he exited the corner. So now Pilata is just trying to be perfect so he can drive away. Roman needs to be perfect to catch back up. Meanwhile, for 8th, Carwile and Adams nose to tail. Eric Mickey a half a second back between these two. So as they run up to turn 3, Carwile's got to do the same thing as Pilata. Be perfect, make no mistakes, and don't let Adams get to your inside because he'll drag Mickey through with him.
And these guys are way back from 7th, so this is the battle for 8th. They're not going any higher than that, that's for sure, as it's almost 8 seconds up the road to Dennis Barrett. The rest of this field strung out behind them. Whoa, Brad Adams, a big tank slapper, uses all the curb and more on the exit of turn 5. And now Mickey's going to have a run at him down into turn 6.
Now left kind of a vulnerability there on the inside. Mickey's going to go through. He'll take the spot. Does he slide wide? No, he keeps it nice and tidy, so he'll be tucked in line. So Elias Roman's 1.2 back from Pilata. He is closing slightly. We had him change for 4th place, though. How about Tyler Jones and Andrew Mickey side by side? And look at Meintz and Barrett push and bump drafting NASCAR style down the back straight.
Yeah, something happened here that brought these guys together. I don't think they were this close last time we checked in with them, but now it's pretty much a 4-way battle, call it. This is for 4th position with Jones and touch side by side with Mickey.
A little bit of pushing and shoving, but they'll have plenty of space on track out. More contact through 11, and Meintz is going to run it way wide. His teammate goes back through. That was actually Andrew Mickey. Meintz is going to go back through. So move the 72 to 5th, the 86 back to 6th. That was a little bit messy there, but they've got it collected. White flag in the air for the leaders, 1.3 seconds for Pilata and Elias Roman. Look at Meintz tracking all the way out to the curb on exit at turn 1, and now Dennis Barrett has a look at Andrew Mickey in the 86.
Backaways just real quick. Eric Mickey has passed Brad Adams, but has not gotten by Eric Carwile yet, so these are precious points in the championship for that 88 car. But at the front, it's 1.5 seconds.
Whoa, he's way out wide and 4 tires off in the gravel there, Tomo. And it's still a 3-horse fight for a 5th place spot.
Yeah, and luckily for him, just like when he got tagged at the apex of 12, you just keep your foot in it. The car's not really going anywhere but straight.
And these guys are going to get
5 seconds at the front for Roman to Pilata. That's going to be tough to do on this final lap.
I don't think that's really going to be able to
happen.
Yeah, again, and John Lavender now has a run on Elias Roman, so those two are going to battle. We'll take you back to this fight here as soon as we're done with 10A and 10B for the front group, because it's going to get dicey. Down into 10A, 10B. Roman goes defensive, big slide into 10A. Caleb John Lavender's going to cross him over. Here he comes up the inside. I don't think he's got enough of a run, though. For the lead, Andrew Pilata drives away. Checkered flag for the 14. He wins at Road Atlanta. Elias Roman 2nd, Caleb John Lavender 3rd. Tyler Jones is going to finish in 4th. Darwin Meintz, though, is going to bring home 5th place. Barrett and Andrew Mickey going to be 6th and 7th. And Ryan Carwile, Eric Mickey now drag race to the checkers.
Yeah, Barrett made something happen there on the very last lap, gets by Mickey, Andrew Mickey, and then Eric Mickey not able to get any further up than 9th place. You get 3 drops out of 16 races in the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, and if Eric Mickey only has to drop a 9th, that's really not that bad. This is one of the races he'll want to forget, though, this season so far, I think.
Brad Adams was disappointed he didn't get turned around to show off like Darwin Meintz did, so he just did it at the end of the race instead. So checkered flag there. Let's have a look at your race results. Pilata again taking a victory in Radenso Sports Car Challenge, as he did last round at Watkins Glen, and quickly solidifying himself as certainly a favorite to win these races every single time. Bombshell Racing Team had a really good race. All 3 of their cars inside the top 10. I think they would have liked a couple spots better, but still a good round for them. Brad Adams comes home with a 10th place spot. Louis Alessi drops down the order, but disappointing run for Ryan Christoph, Dylan Broyles. They got tangled at the top of the hill. Bill Griffin was here tonight in the number 97. Really didn't see a whole lot of him. He finishes 2 laps down. And Evan Adams and Francis Castillo Romero, 20th and 21st DNFs for both of those cars. All right, deep breath. We got it done. We'll step away for just a moment. We'll be right back with interviews. Stay with us. Welcome back live to SimTV and Radenso Sports Car Challenge, round number 4 from Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Here now with Ryan Christoph. Ryan, a podium for race 1 for you tonight. Really solid top 5 run there. But race 2, looking at the car now, got some bits and pieces kind of shredded and bent up. A bit of an issue there rejoining the track after a tangle at the top of the hill. Walk us through your night in race 1 and race 2.
Yeah, race 1. Let's talk about race 1 a lot. I think I qualified, 8th or 7th there, and was able to really just kind of sit back and pick people off. These cars were so evenly matched. I think there was only a few tenths between pole and maybe 10th place. So I knew it was going to be really, really close and just capitalize on mistakes. That's usually my style. I don't have the outright pace like some of these other guys do. So it was really a matter of just picking them off and trying to be patient, and had to force the issue when I got a run once in turn 10. Didn't make any contact, but luckily forced the other guy into making a mistake the next corner and was able to get by. So it was a blast. My heart was beating, hand shaking a little bit. Had to go upstairs and relax a little bit and watch the GS race. And then race 2, second lap, I was really starting to make some good moves and some good clean passes and feeling really good. Brad and somebody else went too wide through turn 1. They got a big run on them up the hill, and then we just barely touched, it looked like, and got sideways. These cars you can get out of a spin pretty easily. So took the shortcut and was trying to just really slowly blend back in before hitting the tire wall where the S's turn right. And I just looked at the replay, and it looks like that guy also had a car on his right. So he really had no room to give me any space and turn in early. So, that was totally my bad, and just kind of hoping that he'd give me a little half a car width to try and get back on the tarmac, and he didn't have anywhere to go, so that was totally my fault.
Ryan, a podium in race 1, still a really solid night for you. Want to thank you for joining us here at the booth, and good luck next week. We're heading to VIR.
Thanks, guys. Great call.
Have a good night, Ryan. We'll see you later. So moving on now to, let's see, we'll pull in DJ now, and Tom, I'll let you have this one.
Well, DJ, it was basically a mirror image of Circuit of the Americas, of race 1 you'd rather forget, a great starting position relative to your most direct competitors, and then kind of a runaway in race 2. That sound about right?
Yeah, race 2 was kind of boring. But I was having a great time in race 1. I didn't even want to be next to Paul in that braking zone. He just moved over, and I wasn't going to choke up. And I was like, well, I'm going to brake a little early. Next thing you know, I'm braking at the same time as Paul. So now we're side by side going into the thing. I wanted to turn in, but Paul didn't. And by the time I turned in, I was like way past the corner. And I got on power. I figured I was going to be in 5th after that, not in a wall. But, racing's tough sometimes. So, and yeah, I mean, I made a point to just run flat out in race 2, no safety. And that made race 2 pretty fun for me. But besides that, it was a little bit disappointing night with the debut of the Hawk car.
Yeah, I was going to say, we kind of made the call in the moment that it didn't look like you really intended to do anything with where you ended up on the outside of Paul there, and then maybe even had some ABS that kept you from turning in. But pretty cool to see the Hawk. I mean, the car's beautiful, the Hawk performance car. You working with them in real life too on your real car, yeah?
Yeah, and that situation opened up from sim racing. So sim racing, the thing that just keeps on giving to me, apparently. So I'm a sim racer for life, guys. This is awesome.
Well, congrats, win in race 2. Hopefully we'll see you next week or 2 weeks from now at VIR.
Yep, can't wait.
And that's DJ Alessandrini, race from Grand Sport. We're also going to have Andrew Pilata in here, who continues his winning ways after taking home a checkered flag in race 2 in TCR. Andrew, Watkins Glen, it was pretty wild. You had to kind of make your way through a wreck and then pass 2 crashing leaders. This time it was pretty intense, but even not quite as wild as Watkins Glen. Walk us through your night. I'm sure you were happy to not have to pass a bunch of crashing cars this time and just drive away there at the end.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd agree with winning ways. I didn't exactly show anything that resembles winning for race 1, but at least I got that out of my system early. And then for race 2, it was pretty much just run my laps. That's really what it should have been the whole time. But I'm still working on trying to not make so many mistakes during the race, and I just try to keep my head down and focus on race 2 and try to make my moves where I could.
Next week we head to Virginia International, actually next round rather, we'll head to Virginia International Raceway. A lot narrower of a racetrack, a lot more, I don't want to say runoff room, because it's not really a runoff, it's just grass. We're going to go for a wild ride. How do you interpret that challenge? Because we've been to some racetracks lately that are kind of wide. So how do you think that's going to kind of change the racing as we head to a narrow track for round 5?
I mean, I'm gonna have to pick your battles a little bit more, and figure out how to pretty much not just stick the nose in everywhere. Really, what I've kind of been learning more of is try to let other people make mistakes. So I think it's going to be more about pressuring other people and getting them to leave a window open, and then try to take advantage of that, especially with the drafts and some of those braking zones there. So either way, it'll be fun. I love VIR. I got married there. I won't complain. So it'll be good times.
All right, Andrew. Thanks for talking to us. We'll look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. Thanks for talking.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
On now to Paul Darling, who won race 1 tonight and continues after sweeping around a little while ago. Paul, congratulations on your race win tonight. And what was it like out there in the Grand Sport races in your Cayman this evening?
Extremely intense. I'm not sure how. I think I got lucky with my quali lap, putting it over DJ and Ken there. But I actually crashed twice on my quali run in turn 5, so I was being extremely cautious that first race, and I could not pull any kind of gap. Everyone was faster than me, it seemed like, so I was just trying to keep it clean and get a good run out of 7 so I couldn't get passed into 10. Race 2 was just less chaos than I expected, actually, but I was able to avoid some wrecks and bring it home clean.
Talk to me about the temperature change from race 1 to race 2. Obviously, a big drop, about 30 degrees. How did that change the handling of the car, and did that make things sketchier or better for you in that second race?
I think for me, it was more of the mental game of when I'm behind people, I can push a little harder than when I'm out in front. So I was able to push much, much harder than I had in race 1. Then the temperature definitely helped.
Anything from you, Tom, before we head on? We got Eric Mickey waiting, so we might want to talk to him. But you got anything for Paul?
I'm good. Congrats, Paul. Another commanding from the front lead. You seem to have a knack for that.
Thank you very much, guys.
All right, so Paul Darling, winner tonight in GS Race 1. We're going to talk to Eric real quick. Hey, Eric, you got a copy?
Yes, I do. How's it going, guys?
It's going great up here, man. Another race win for you tonight. You continue just racking up victories. Tomo, I'm going to let you take care of this one before we head out for the night. But Eric, congrats, and we'll let Tomo take it away.
Yeah, we kind of alluded to it in at some point during one of these races that I've seen in kind of conversations and chats. You would say that you don't necessarily think of yourself as the guy to beat, but you've been the guy to beat this season, and it seems that you just kind of make smart moves. You pick your spots, and you end up in the position to succeed almost every single race. Especially with that first round, do you have a strategy when you come into these races for that, or is it really just kind of a shot in the dark?
No, man, I really don't think that. I mean, I guess you look at some of the qualifying results. I think tonight was my worst start out of the 4 weeks that we've run. So there's definitely an argument looking at that kind of stuff that I'm underselling myself. But I still really don't feel like, just on pure pace, that I am the guy to beat. I think Andrew Pallotta maybe has that crown at the moment. He's just had a few races worse luck than I have, and yeah, I approach the races just trying to be clean and get whatever I can get and take what comes to me and not try too hard and get into trouble.
Well, consistency is key, and it's working for you, as well as some great finishes. You have almost a 45-point lead going into round number 5 next week at VIR, so whatever you're doing, keep it up. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, Eric Mickey, race 1 winner in TCR. That's going to do it for the broadcast here, Tom. We head to VIR in 2 weeks. That's a racetrack that I think a lot of people don't run quite as much in official racing, so there's a lot of question marks around how that's going to go. Lots of practice required, but your closing thoughts after Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, round 4.
Well, I think we saw the season take a huge turn today in the way the races unfolded with quality of racing. I think everybody's in a different headspace after a couple of rough weeks, and I think the new rules with the starts specifically have really done magic for the racing over the length of the race. Now, you also say VIR is not necessarily a super common track within the racing series official in iRacing, but it has been very common in leagues that a lot of these guys are participating in over the last couple of weeks. So I think a lot of these guys are extremely well versed in, especially the GS cars at VIR. It's going to be really fun to see how that translates into next week's racing. I think if anything, it's going to be even tighter than it was tonight.
A really solid round of racing from Radenso Challenge, round number 4. Make sure you join us next Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. for the Spec MX5 Sim Racing Challenge at VIR. And the week after will be at VIR for Radenso Sports Kart Challenge, round number 5. My name's Kyle Heyer, joined by Tom O'Gorman. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful night.